Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Please remember to subscribe to the channel here if you haven't already. There's a lot of people who watch that I don't think are subscribed. And if you do like the video, please remember to like the video. Now, today, I'm going to go over some of Dr. Ramani's recent appearance on the Lewis Howes show. School of Greatness, I think it's called. It's a long episode, so I'm going to break it down into a couple parts because there is some interesting things in there, and there is room for some disagreement too, which I know people get upset at me when I disagree at all with anything Dr. Ramani says. But if you're team Dr. Salerno and Dr. George Simon, you will disagree a little bit with some of what Dr. Ramani says. But we can have nuance here, right? Just because we disagree with some things doesn't mean we disagree with everything she says. And just because we disagree doesn't mean that, like, oh my goodness, she's a demon. No, that's not how it works. That's not how we're going to play it here. But in this episode, she talks about how there appears to be an epidemic of narcissism. And what is going on with that? I think there's a couple things going on with that. For one, people are so much more aware of narcissism and toxic behaviors now. And that's a huge element of it. What people didn't realize in the past was they used to call narcissists assholes. That's what they were called before, but now people have the terminology for it. Before, it was really just the people in the psychological fields, like the therapists and psychiatrists. They knew about these terms. The other people didn't. So now people, the lay people, are just catching up to that. And also, like I've said several times before, social media is giving people an outlet to behave more narcissistically. Just because someone behaves narcissistically online doesn't necessarily mean they're a full-blown narcissist. It just means that they're getting rewarded by the social media algorithms with money, status, and attention by behaving more narcissistically. What gets rewarded is going to continue. But those are the reasons I would think there appears to be an epidemic of narcissism. Not to mention, there's no shortage of narcissist breeding. I mean, how many people do you know that have a narcissistic parent, or their baby daddy or their baby mommy is a narcissist? Tons, right? Ellie, what's shaking? I know, right, Ellie? People used to just call them assholes, so now they have a word for it. They have a word for them. They're narcissists. But back in the day, they used to just say, you're an asshole. And George, what's shaking? And what else do they talk about in this? They talk about, Dr. Ramani is much more environmental focused, so we're going to have some disagreement about that. What else? I'm not sure if it's going to be in this part, but what happens later is she thinks there's a myth about, or she thinks narcissists hate themselves and they're full of self-loathing. And I'm more in school Salerno and Simon with this, where I would say, not always, because self-loathing is, how do you square that with a grandiose sense of self and feelings of superiority? If that's how you feel about yourself, you feel grandiose and superior, is that really feeling self-loathing? I don't really think so. Now, do some self-loathe? Yes. I do think the vulnerable narcissist types, they would be the ones that I think might be a little more self-loathing. But then again, they're saying now that really could be more borderline BPD. And that would make sense to me too. So in terms of narcissists, I don't know. I don't necessarily buy it that they're all full of self-loathing, just like I don't necessarily buy it that they're all full of shame. No, I don't buy it. Teresa, what's shaking? Welcome to the chat. Waiting on DoorDash, that is what's shaking. It's been a good day here today. Did my content. Been a little tired, so I took a couple days off from the gym, but I'll be back at it tomorrow. But there's a lot of work coming up for me here because I'm having an interesting guest on Tuesday. We're going to talk about some controversial subjects, entrepreneurialism and trauma, some vaccine stuff, health stuff, trusting the science stuff. It might make some people angry. I don't think it's going to make the people that follow me angry. It might make other people angry because the people who follow me, they know me. They know what I think about these things. And I think a lot of the people that follow me, they're more in line with that kind of thing too. Agradios, what does that mean? I got to ask ChatGPT. But also, when I was posting clips of Dr. Ramani on Instagram, people were very upset with me. Like, you're not allowed to disagree with her. You're being too hard on her. It's like, am I? Am I being too hard on her? I disagreed with one thing. And guess what? Other professionals would disagree with her too if they were even allowed to. They probably think it's bad form. But yours truly, I'm not bound by those rules, so I can do whatever I want. Now, I suffer the consequences sometimes for doing whatever I want, but I would have it no other way. I'm not very good at staying in the guardrails of that kind of thing. I like to speak my mind freely, and that's kind of what happens when you have a license or you're a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You kind of have to play by their rules a little bit. You have to adhere to their licensing standards. And and as you know, because of what Dr. Salerno and I have talked about, I don't agree with all that. I don't agree with all of their standards, like how you're not supposed to talk about someone not in the room. I don't know about that one, Jack. So what should I do? This one or this one? 1 or 2? I go back and forth. There's advantages. Demon King, George. Oh, speaking of Demon King, I might have a short breakdown of Tucker Carlson and Milo Yiannopoulos. They were talking about something that's right up our alley, actually, about demonic possession. And some of it, I do agree with what they were saying, actually. And it's actually a similar viewpoint of what I think demons are. Well, so that's going to be another day, though. That's going to be another day. So let's roll here. Let's see what Dr. Ramani has to say for herself. The frick is this? We don't need that.
If you're dealing with a narcissist, don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize. So
deep. That doesn't sound like Jade. I've never heard that one before. Deep. She might have made that up. We all know about Jade. Justify, argue, defend, or explain. Don't do that. But that's her new one. Deep. DEEP.
With narcissism, we have to talk about sort of the top of the line behaviors. And those are, let's view narcissism as almost like this inner core. Okay. And the inner core of narcissism is this variable empathy, usually a lack of empathy, entitlement, grandiosity, validation seeking, a sense of envy for other people or the assumption that other people envy them, the inability to regulate their anger when they're frustrated, disappointed, or stressed, a sense of shame. So if anyone points out a flaw in them, they tend to react with rage, a reactive sensitivity to criticism. So if anyone points out anything, they come at them.
I don't necessarily always agree with the shame part, as she said. And I've made videos about this too. Narcissists are hypersensitive to criticism and perceived criticism, but I don't necessarily think that's because of shame. I think they just don't like their inflated sense of self-worth to be poked at. They only want admiration. They only want people to confirm their greatness to them. And when they don't get that, they're very sensitive to that criticism. Is that because of shame? I don't necessarily think so. I think sometimes, but definitely not always.
Blame shifting and responsibility shifting. So they blame other people for what is actually their responsibility. They're very controlling, very egocentric. Everything is about them. Everything is self-serving.
Insecure.
Very deeply insecure, lots of feelings of inadequacy. But
I don't agree with that either, because as Dr. Salerno and I have said many times, grandiose and superior. They feel like they are better than and superior than other people. And if you feel better than and superior, how at the same time do you feel insecure and inadequate? Dr. Simon would say this is just the compensatory view, is what she's saying. Oh, if you're going to act so arrogant and full of bravado, it must be because you're covering up for some sort of insecurity. To which I would say, not always. Not always. And again, if your team, Dr. Salerno and I, and Dr. Simon and I, you would say, yeah, not always the case, Dr. Ramani, sometimes. But I don't think always. And I think people have this view because it makes them feel better. It makes them feel better to think, well, they must really be insecure. They must just be overcompensating. And I think what happens is, and Dr. Simon mentions this in his book, Character Disturbance, people think that narcissists are just like us. Oh, we would be doing this. That's how we would be feeling if we were acting that way. Oh, we'd only be doing that to cover up for an insecurity. But what people don't understand is we're not like narcissists. Narcissists are very different. And some of them, they do indeed think they're just great. They think I'm just amazing, and they think their shit doesn't stink. And this is the other part about it. When you have impaired empathy or a lack of empathy, do you think they really stop to think too much about, oh, I'm really just an awful person, I'm really bad? Or is it more like, I don't really care about that. I don't really feel those negative feelings a lot of times. I just want what I want, and that's all I think about it. But people don't think much about that. They don't attribute it to it. They think, oh, it must be inadequacy. It must be insecurity. And I would say not always.
Those are all sort of pushed down. All of these things I'm talking about, the entitlement and all the rest of it, it's like a suit of armor that protects that inner core of inadequacy so nobody ever sees it. If I'm walking around telling you I'm all that, well, then I can't be inadequate, right? And if I got a big fancy car and a big fancy house and a big fancy person on my arm, then I'm all that, right? So with narcissism, we have to talk about sort of the top of the line behaviors.
And so what is that? That's just the grandiosity to cover up for insecurity. And I just don't think that's always the case.
And those are presentations: charm, charisma, confidence, curiosity. And they also
can you have those things and not be narcissist?
You can,
because I'm a very curious person. I care, you know. I'm like,
so here's where it gets interesting, right? Is you can be curious, and when you can find an empathic, charismatic person, behold them. They are the unicorns of the human being. Like
someone
you really
who's
are
confident
like
and
when
caring.
I meet the confident, charismatic, empathic, kind, respectful, humble person.
I
literally, I'm like, everyone. And I can tell you it doesn't happen often.
So do you really think that's the case? You can't be confident and charismatic and empathetic, or else you're a unicorn. Do you agree with that, chat? Do you think she's right? Or is it a little more black and white, as she says? Now, if you're confident and charismatic and empathetic, much more likely to be toxic or narcissistic. What do you think? I think there's a little more gray than that. I think because it's all a spectrum anyway. There's a spectrum of narcissism, just like there can be a spectrum of charisma, a spectrum of confidence, a spectrum of empathy. That's what I would say about that.
And I'm usually like, I look goo eyes because I'm thinking, and then of course I'm poking at it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna find what's wrong with it. Every so often I find it, and I'm like, it hasn't happened often. It hasn't happened often. But here's the thing: the charm, the charisma, the confidence, the curiosity. There's also comfort that they also offer. It's like they'll often feel like they're rescuers. I can take care of it all. They'll be very generous
up front, right?
You know, it's all a front game, right?
Yeah.
So what happens then? The curtain comes down across all your common sense, and you miss the little thing.
Lewis Howes needs to learn when to shut up. Like, so many people don't know how to listen to the person they're talking to. I try to make it a point when I interview people to not over talk them and butt in constantly. I try to let them get their thoughts out, because I think when I'm interviewing people, that's the point. The point is for me to try to get the best out of that guest. That's how I see it. But some people, they just can't help themselves but to jump in, over talk, never let people finish their sentences. See Oprah the other day in that thing, constantly finishing other people's sentences, interrupting. It's like, like stop, take a break, let them go, let them say what they got to say.
Yeah. And people, and if you either you miss the lack of empathy and the anger and the rage and all the other stuff, or you justify it.
You just, well, yeah.
They're, well, he's got a big job, or she's really stressed, or she doesn't mean that, or that's just their culture. I was reading an article by a linguist recently, and the linguist was talking about how people talk over each other in certain cultures, right? And they were using that as a way to rationalize interrupting. And there's interrupting and there's interrupting. Narcissistic interrupting is not only, it's contemptuous interrupting.
What's that mean? Like dismissive interrupting?
It's dismissive, okay, all right. You're talking, and then I not only cut in, but it's basically like
your point of view doesn't matter, or you're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
I know what's really, yeah. Okay, so you shared.
I don't know if it's that cut and dry either. I think sometimes they just can't help themselves but to get their thoughts out there. Their impaired empathy plus their sense of self-importance, they think, of course, what I have to say is more important. So of course I'm going to butt in. Of course I'm going to overtalk and interrupt. And someone had said, I think it was Sam Vaknin, that when you see someone constantly interrupting like that, it's an example of grandiosity in action. But to Dr. Ramani's point, narcissists are not the only kinds of people to interrupt. Sometimes people with ADHD can interrupt. Occasionally, people with autism who aren't socially calibrated might interrupt. And other times, just simply assholes could interrupt. But again, it's still generally not good, I would say. I think it can be covertly a little bit disrespectful, I'll say. It's a good thing to learn how to listen. And so many people, they say being listened to is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. And I think there's something to that. And they also say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Some of these signs of malignant narcissism.
No, that's okay. So let's go back to the core. So we got the core of lack of empathy, all that stuff I talked about.
Entitlement, yes.
Yes. Now, the problem with narcissism is there's subtypes.
Oh my gosh.
Not all narcissists are created. We really do need a whiteboard in here.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'd be writing notes up there, because what we have then is the classical narcissist, the sort of 57 Chevy of narcissism, is the grandiose narcissist. It is the big, charming, confident, I'm the one, I'm the best, no insight, very little empathy, kind of, but very like big salesperson-y. That's the grandiose narcissist.
Wow.
But then when we talk about the malignant narcissist, again, we have all that stuff, lack of empathy and all that other stuff, but they are more menacing. They are more controlling. They're a little bit more scary. They're sadistic. They're paranoid.
What if they have both of those things?
And so the thing about the malignant narcissists is they're the ones that have more traits of antisocial personality disorder. And antisocial personality disorder is the clinical way to view psychopathy and sociopaths. So psychopaths and sociopaths, that's really antisocial personality disorder. So a malignant narcissist is someone that has traits of that and perhaps could be comorbid with antisocial personality disorder. And they're the ones that are more likely to be sadistic and feel joy in other people's pain. They'll get pleasure out of that and they'll enjoy it. They're like making people uncomfortable in public, embarrassing them, humiliating them, etc. But also paranoia as well. And you'll often see that paranoia come out as accusing others of cheating. Of course, their accusations are also confessions a lot of times as well. So if they start accusing you of cheating, chances are they're the ones cheating themselves. And I've heard people say they should turn the dark tetrad into whatever 5 would be. The dark 5. What's the term for 5? I don't even know. But it would be Machiavellianism, psychopathy, narcissism, sadism, and then the 5th one they want to add is paranoia. And there's a good reason why they want to add that, because sometimes the malignants can be paranoid, which makes sense.
Usually they can. And that's a horrific combination, because then that person's real charming on the front end, And then once you cross the threshold and walk through all the way in with them, now you're dealing with their malignant,
Oh my
manipulative,
gosh.
scary, and when we
Controlling.
see controlling, when we see manipulative narcissists, malignant narcissism, we're seeing people who are often they're more likely to be aggressive, to be violent, to be abusive, to isolate people from ever being able to get help,
gosh.
from being abusive in the workplace. We hear these big, awful workplace abuse stories a lot, especially a lot in the Me Too era. A lot of those folks are malignant narcissists.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if you're with a narcissist? You maybe it's been a year, you've been dating someone, or your boss didn't seem like it at the beginning, but then you're figuring out, check, they've got a lot of these things. But the first 6 months seemed great, or it seemed like it was amazing, but now we're seeing the curtain, pull back, and some of these things are coming out, and we're not feeling good about the relationship we're in, whether it's a working relationship, a friendship, an intimate relationship. We've spotted it.
Yep.
What I'm hearing you say is there's really no way to change a narcissist.
No.
So trying to change them is not going to happen.
No.
Yes, there is no changing a narcissist, as we all know. Once you think they're a narcissist, you need to act accordingly. What does act accordingly mean? It usually means you get the heck out of there if possible and go no contact. When it's not possible because of co-parenting, work, or maybe because of a financial situation, least amount of contact necessary, and you try to stay away. Use the tools, gray rock, biff, yellow rock, don't jade, etc. But let's see what Dr. Ramani says about it.
So
does it mean we just pretty much have to rip the cord and rip the Band-Aid and get out? Or how does it,
So
how do we
life's
navigate?
not that simple.
Yeah.
Right? We can't walk away from all relationships. People can't just quit their jobs.
Yeah.
Let's say a person starts figuring this out 5 years in a relationship and they're married and they have children.
Kids. Oh.
What if it's their family of origin? And they're like, I've done my homework and this is actually my parent or my sibling. People say, well, I don't know that I'm willing to cut off from my entire family. So I'm not going to sit here and tell people that, oh, you just got to always go. In fact, my first book on the topic of narcissism is called Should I Stay or Should I Go? Surviving a Relationship with a Narcissist. And I wrote it from that point of view because it's too simplistic to say, well, get up and go. Like you said, rip off the Band-Aid. So and neither path is easy, but in an ideal world, I will be frank with you. And there's actually an interesting group in Israel has gathered some data on this, on narcissistic abuse. And they've found that the thing that works best in dealing with a narcissistic relationship that resulted in the best outcomes was going no contact, like having no contact with them.
Completely blocked.
What do you know? Color me shocked.
Yeah, completely
off.
Done. And because it's almost like a toxin, right? If there's a toxic gas, the best way to feel better is to
eliminate.
Have no more toxic
If you have a little bit, you're just going to be feeling a little bit of pain consistently. It's going to be holding on to it.
Correct.
Oh
but a lot of people don't have that. So the biggest, if you're going to have to stay in this relationship, you have to engage in something that this is called radical acceptance. This is never going to change.
This is who they are.
This is who they are. This is it. So, and I tell people, I have something called the deep technique that I talk about. The deep technique is when I tell people, if you're dealing with a narcissist, don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize. So deep, don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize. And so when they're coming at you, and if you can remember, you really are keeping it tight. It's a lot of, it's like you're in a deposition. Yes, no, okay, sounds good.
I like that. So don't defend, engage, excuse, or personalize. Similar to Jade, similar to Biff, but a little bit different. Same concept though.
Sure. Now, narcissists don't like that because
so
they
keep
love
coming
the fight. They're going to
bait
you. They're going to bait you. And when I tell you, when they bait you, they don't play.
They go for
everything that's going to
make something else. Start making stuff up.
They start making stuff up. They go after your friends. They draw your friends in it.
Threatening to shame you publicly, whatever it is, right?
And so then at some people take that bait and then the narcissist is like, game on. And they're all I got you. Because when you're fighting, they're fighters. That's what they do. In fact, there was a great research study came out from Ohio State University, Ohio boy, and phenomenal study that came out this year. And over 450 studies they examined. and found really strong effects that narcissism is consistently associated with aggression. There's nothing soft about this. This is about aggression. They want the fight. They are always a better fighter.
Yes. And when I interviewed my friend Kelly, that's what she was saying about her ex. Her ex said he needs to fight. He needs conflict. And he was telling Kelly's mother this, that he doesn't know how to operate without it. And what Dr. Ramani just said here makes perfect sense to me.
Oh my gosh.
And they want the fight, so they bait you. You got to be made of steel. Don't defend, don't engage, don't explain.
Crazy.
To not get into the fight. Every relationship with a narcissist is a threesome. You just don't know it. Because they always need that third person in the relationship, whether it's someone gave me the number or someone's noticing me.
This person DM'd me or this person's hitting on me.
And what are they talking about? Triangulation. I've said all relationships with a narcissist are open relationships. The problem is the other person just doesn't know it. And because most narcissists are going to cheat. There can be some rare exceptions in the more cerebral narcissist types, but she's talking about triangulation here too, where they'll pit people against one another, whether it's friends, family, other romantic potential partners, etc. They love to do that.
They're always trying to, and they're always trying to create that sense of intrigue or the idea that somebody is more into them, or again, it's often them creating the jealousy, or they be incredibly jealous of their partners.
Oh,
there's a difference between jealousy
of
and pathological jealousy.
There's
two different things. Okay, so jealousy is normal.
Yes.
We're a pair bonded species. We human beings. We pretty much are about, generally, normatively, have sex with one person.
Yeah.
People are like, no, that person cheated on me. I said, yeah, they were only having sex with them. They weren't having sex with you.
Right.
They were still sexually monogamous.
With one person
Just
at that
they
moment.
weren't banging you.
Yeah.
They were banging someone else.
Yes.
You were on paper in a relationship with them. You went to the same home, but their sex was with someone else. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we tend to be pair bonded. We tend to be monogamous. All right. So jealousy is I
don't even know if that's even true. I think humans are, what's the word for it? They're not always permanently monogamous. It's more of a pushed construct by the churches a lot of times to push monogamy.
threat to that. Think of it Darwinianly, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a relationship and a threat comes in, right? Normal jealousy is that sort of evolutionary jealousy, right? I'm with a person. If somebody comes in as a threat to that relationship, I've lost the resources and support for our offspring, right? That's all the Darwinian stuff, reproduction.
Pathological jealousy.
Pathological jealousy, though, that starts getting into the realm of things like paranoia and
oh my gosh,
and negative mood states and all that. Like jealousy doesn't feel good, but I always, when I've worked with couples, like, I'm jealous. I'm like, that's good. That means you still got skin in the game. Like, because when I've been with people, worked with couples or worked with individuals, and they'll say, I'm not even jealous when people notice my husband. I kind of feel sad because I'm like, yeah, this thing.
Yeah. And so what she's saying there is when the woman doesn't feel jealous, it's because now she doesn't care anymore. And so she's saying there can be a healthy level of jealousy, to which I agree. It shows that the person cares. Like if a woman gets jealous about me, I kind of think it's adorable because it shows that they care. What's the opposite of love? Not hate. It is indifference. And jealousy shows more caring. Indifference, when you're indifferent, you're no longer even jealous. And that goes both ways too.
This thing's kind of done.
I feel like, I don't feel jealous. I feel like I trust the person I'm with.
But that's what we're talking about, pathological jealousy, right? So I think of my partner. Ironically, on my drive here, he was talking about something and about this woman who I knew we were going to see who had hit on him. And this dude is so loyal. It levels it to a whole new level. And I remember thinking in the drive, I'm like, I got that little funny thing in my tummy. And I'm like, he doesn't even live in this country. And so I'm thinking and I was like, that's good. That's good that I'm still feeling I still got a dog in the fight.
But it doesn't mean you're like, for days, letting it stress you out and like talking to them about it.
Only because we're talking about it here.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And so what did you say? What's the
Paranoid, the pathological jealousy.
Pathological jealousy.
Yeah.
That's a narcissistic
That's more
trait.
of it's more paranoid. It's more antagonistic. It's more about,
You must be doing something.
You're doing so. It's accusatory.
Gosh.
It's almost delusional.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And that's where the accusations become confessions type thing. And that's where it can also be an excuse to control as well, where they want you to stop doing certain things and it becomes very controlling. They want to be in control. They just want what's going to help them get narcissistic supply and what's going to make them feel more powerful and superior. That's what they want.
What would you say again are the main causes? What are the main things that happen to cause someone to become a narcissist? Is it all trauma based?
It's partly trauma. It's also that temperament. It is chaos in the early environment.
Yes.
So Lewis Howe says, is it trauma based? Only trauma based. Dr. Ramani says, no, not only, but she says it also is part of it. So let's see what she says.
It's lack of secure attachment. It's overvaluation of the child.
Gotcha.
Basically, the child can do no wrong, and they're so wonderful. I mean, it's interesting. We're about to see something fascinating happen, and I don't know how it's going to go down. We're about to see, because Facebook's coming up on 20 years soon, right? We're about to see the first generation of kids who are born into the Facebook world, where every moment being documented and shared, and
since they were born.
Since they were born. This is the first time we're going to be seeing this. So I bless the people out there who are going to start collecting this data, because we now have, you're going to see what happens if you were, because I had kids way before this. So I did not, the only people who saw their pictures were the people I actually
friends and family.
Put them in an envelope, mailed a picture kind of thing.
Or came over to the house and looked at the
actual baby. But this is a whole new game for kids who's basically were accessories to their parents' lives. Like, look at my child this, look at my child this, look at my child this. Every day there's a new picture.
So do you think it's okay to share some of your family life on social media and some of your children's, special moments? Or do you think we should be protecting our kids at all costs and never show their face, never show anything until they're 10 or 12?
It's a super interesting area. There's some actually really interesting thinking and writing about this, which is these children aren't consenting to this. Are these children consenting to you showing them have a meltdown? Or, we see all these silly child videos, and sometimes I kind of feel a little sadness because these things stay evergreen.
And this is a good point by Dr. Ramani. I think a lot of times when parents do this, they're doing it a little more selfishly. And of course, a narcissistic parent might do this because when they live through their children, they think their children are extensions of themselves. They want to get supply from posting their children. They want attention, admiration, acknowledgement. Oh, your son or daughter is so cute. Your son or daughter is so attractive. But again, there's a fine line with this here too. I'm posting occasionally. I don't necessarily think there's a problem with that. But excessively, yeah, I mean, do they even stop to think what their child is going to think about this when they're an adult? Like every little bit of their lives is documented. But that being said, I am an advocate of genes and DNA. That is the majority of what makes someone a narcissist. This does not mean the environment doesn't play a part at all. Trauma can make things worse. But Dr. Robert Plomin says over 50% when it comes to personality disorders is in the DNA. And I agree with that. I agree with that. This overvaluation / neglect and abuse is what I used to believe more of. But this behavioral genetics from people like Dr. Robert Plomin, Kevin Mitchell, I've updated my thinking now because of it.
They didn't agree to that. And as much as we say, oh no, it's so cute, is still, they didn't consent. It's a vulnerability, right? So I know some folks in the developmental sphere of psychology saying, oh, this may not be entirely cool.
Yeah, what happens
agreeing.
What happens when the kid's 23 and they start going back and seeing all these things that their mom or dad posted, and they're like, that's not really cool. I wish you wouldn't have done that to me.
But it goes beyond that, because even when the child is young, there's this sense of things are constantly being done to them without them agreeing to it.
Posing and put these clothes on and do this and let's post you.
Yeah, in a public way. And then the child also gets this sense of their utility, their importance to their parents is their social media persona. You look so pretty in your dress. You look so cute in your costume. Like you're wondering, are you costuming your child for Halloween for you or for them?
Or for the validation online.
Yeah, exactly. For the validation
the
parent is getting. Yes, exactly.
And that's tough because I have friends who never show their kids stuff, and then I have friends who do show their kids. And man, it's just like Yeah. How do we navigate that conversation, and how do we?
I think we're building this airplane in the sky.
Oh man.
And so the challenge becomes then that I would say it's a balancing act between parents talking to each other, both parents, but also I think there's a larger issue of how much is the child feeling that they're valued, validated for being the kid who poses in social media, right? Because what does every child want? They want their parents'
Love and
That's
attention.
all they want is their parents' love and attention.
Yeah.
So if they start to recognize that if I'm looking good on social media and mommy's getting validated, then they'll put on the weird thing they want her to wear or do the thing that she wants them to do. But what's not happening is that their interests, what they value, may not be cultivated, or everything's a photo op. It's as though the child feels that they're constantly on display versus just having a moment where they're being present and mindful, and it doesn't all have to be documented.
And this is a good thing for Dr. Ramani to bring up, because this is a thing in new age parenting here. This is a discussion to be having with the mother or father of your children. Oh, what's going to be our policy with posting our kids online? Should we not do it at all? Should we only do it on special occasions? It's a conversation to be had, because like Dr. Ramani said, it's like building the airplane in the sky. We don't know how this stuff is going to impact us down the line. It is still new. I mean, Facebook is technically 20 years old, but for the most part, it's really 10 years old, I would say. That's when more people started getting on it. And we don't know how this is going to impact us yet. I do know they know that for younger girls, it's actually really negative, the impacts of social media. Jonathan Haidt, he does some interesting work about that. I'm going to try to get him on the show at some point too, and we can have an interesting discussion about that. He's a social psychologist.
I've been frank with you as a psychologist. I'm concerned about when these chickens come home to roost, and they're going to.
Let's say there are parents that are posting about their kids online.
Mhm.
You know, maybe they have a small following, maybe it's to a private group of their
Sure.
friends and family.
That's a kind of a different game.
And or it's the ones that have a bigger following. If they were going to be posting and they have a bigger following, let's say, not to their friends and family,
Mhm.
what would be appropriate that you think psychologically in a healthy manner to be able to talk about your family and your kids? Is there a healthy way psychologically that's going to,
I think
not
that
mess them up, or,
being present with your children emotionally, being aware of their needs, of not turning them into a performing pony in your circus. Do you know? I mean, again, I say this as the mom of 2 kids, right?
And so what I would say to parents is, what are your motives? To really get honest with yourself about your motives. If you want to post your kids every day, why do you want to do that? Is it because you just want attention or admiration from people? Like, what is your true intent and motive from doing that? And that would be the first thing to ask yourself. Because again, I'm not saying you need to post them 0, but I do think you have to be careful. There's all sorts of predators in the world, and predators have literally said they look for especially single mothers to post their kids to know who to go after. That is literally something predators have said. So keep that in mind as well. And the example with that was, there was maybe a single mother in her 40s and they had like a teen daughter, and the predator was like, yep, I honed in on her because I wanted access to her kid.
And there are moments when you think, well, this is the day we're going to take such and such picture. Somebody's sick, someone's crying, someone has torn their dress, someone is this. And if you get angry at them because they've ruined your finely laid plans, that child then starts getting that conditional sense of, I'm only about this person's finely laid plans. Listen, we all do it. We all screw up. We all do that conditionality to our kids. It's almost impossible to not. It's how quickly we catch ourselves and say, that's not what they want. We're going to Disneyland because they want to go to Disneyland. We're going to the parks. They want to go to the park, not because what a great day for a photo op. Like I've been on vacation and I've watched families like literally screaming, we need this for the Christmas card.
No way.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Pay attention, look
let
here.
Let them just splash and be sandy and muddy. They're at the beach. And it's that kind of obsessive zeal, because all of that social comparison of people wanting to put out the false self. And what is
that
narcissism
we're
but
perfect.
the false self?
Narcissism is the false self.
Yeah.
It's a mask.
It's always a mask because it's the mask of what they think the world wants, how they want the world wants them to look, which is why more and more people are looking the same. They're getting the same cosmetic procedures. They have the same bodies. They're driving the same cars. They're really sort of shills for this sort of artificial mask. That's a narcissist's game. That narcissism is the opposite of authenticity.
I agree with that. I genuinely agree with that, I should say.
It's so interesting because 4 years ago, I wrote a book called The Mask of Masculinity, which is about, and I interviewed a lot of psychologists and experts on these kind of personality traits and these masks that men wear. And I wrote about it because I realized I was wearing a mask, a couple of different masks for many different years of my life to protect myself, to try to fit in, to try to be liked and loved by society. One of them being like the athlete mask. It's like I always had to win at all costs. I needed to be number one. And if I ever lost or got second, then no one would ever love me. So at all costs, I was like training and developing myself to be the best athlete I could be. And I was a horrible loser. I was a sore loser. I couldn't handle it. I would get angry. I would be like moody. I would be like frustrated and I'm not good enough. I'd beat myself up and train obsessively until I got better. Until I could make sure that, I could put myself in a better position athletically. And there's these different masks that men wear. And I realized that it's all about trying to fit in. It was all about men trying to fit in and trying to belong, but it's not the authentic self.
I don't know if that's what it is. I think competitiveness is more about wanting to be better than, wanting to be superior. So you better believe that a lot of narcissistic people are absolutely really competitive and they want to win. I mean, I can be competitive and I want to win. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's because, I just want to belong. It's like, no, you want to come out on top. I think there can be an element of men in particular and some women. There's a competition, like you want to achieve and you want to do well. Of course, it can go too far in some elements, but it's one of the reasons that some narcissistic people, they do really well in society because they have that driving them and they're never satisfied.
Correct. And that's maybe we'll have a different day. I'll come in and talk to you about the authentic self because it's such a big conversation. When we look at the work of Carl Rogers, right, the humanistic psychologist, and even other humanists like Abraham Maslow. So these were the big players in that humanistic universe. This idea of authenticity and self-actualization. So if you were to view human growth as a mountain, self-actualization is the summit. It's the top. Yes. In my lifetime, I've met 5 self-actualized people and it was unforgettable. And they were always older. I think it's hard to self-actualize when you're younger, and they were deeply authentic. I mean, like you did feel like you were in the face of greatness with them, but some of them were ordinary. Like one was a man who was he was an auto mechanic in Johannesburg. And I was like, I am in the presence of absolute greatness right now.
What did that feel like?
It was
what was the experience?
Absolute serenity. I felt at one with him, at one with the situation. I felt more calmed down. I felt like I could keep listening to him. This was a man with almost no education who, again, he fixed cars in Johannesburg and actually not in the nicest of surroundings.
And this is something Josh and I went over too. The definition of authenticity is like knowing what you're feeling, knowing what you need because of what you're feeling, and knowing who to share it with. Because authentically being you, whatever that is, regardless of how other people see it, you own it. That's my definition of authenticity. It involves humility. It involves honesty. It involves vulnerability. It involves all of that. But most of all, it involves acceptance of ourselves.
And he was joy. Like he was just human joy. And it's not because he was laughing, but he was so proud of what, and anyone looking at it, like there's not a lot happening here, but it was this genuine, authentic, like, please come into look at my beautiful space. This is my life. And the other person I met who was same thing, joy, and that man, that Johannesburg man, I'm still not in touch with, but this other man I am. And he is somebody who had a moment in his life and he decided to devote his life to children and families living in poverty in India. And I worked with a school he was working with in India. And I remember sitting with him We were kind of sitting next to an open sewer, and it smelled like an open sewer. He's just chilling. And I'm like, I could have sat there all day, and it was hot, and there were flies. It was uncomfortable, and he was magnificent. And and it wasn't just the mechanic guy wasn't out there saving the world. He was fixing cars. This guy happened to be doing something for a very small community in this village in India, right?
In service,
but he was in service. The other one was not. But there was such a congruence between who they were as human beings and how they conducted themselves and how they were in the world. There was no sense of someone has more, I want what they have, someone's got it better, why is that happening? How come they got their turn first? And I remember when I think about them, I have the photograph of the gentleman from Johannesburg, this other man I'm still in touch with, and I need that to sort of try to get myself recalibrated to my center. But again, the opposite of narcissism, no mask whatsoever. They were just in themselves. Like, what a life, like what a gorgeous life.
Before the interview continues, if you feel like you're not living your most authentic life, not leaning into your purpose and not living the...
Get out of here.
It's that. Because that's the test. Right? Do they become really dysregulated, impulsive, say really awful things, and then, I was just really stressed out. No. Because if they did it, they're always going to do that because they're on their best behavior in this early dating relationship.
They'll do it worse in the future.
How are they handling themselves in a traffic jam? How do they handle themselves when you get to the restaurant and they say, "Oh, we've lost your reservation," because you really are looking.
What the heck happened here with this? It was skipped to a different episode somehow? Because she's wearing a different shirt now. How the hell did that happen?
Looking for the person who says, "You know what? You up for fast food? Because there's a place across the street." And you know what? It could be the dinner where you fall in love with that person over your, over your
French fries and
cheeseburgers.
burger, yeah.
Exactly. And so, but if that person makes it, do you know who I am? Oh, let me tell you, Yelp review, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be sorry, blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, and I think those situations manifest.
Point across, if you need to get it across.
You don't.
You don't.
You can't. So sometimes I tell people,
but life is meant to be lived in a beautiful way.
Not with them.
So that we should just rip the Band-Aid, you know what I mean?
Not necessarily, we can't, right? So like I said, I'll give you an example, okay? Narcissistic divorce. Family court and family law is not written around saying, narcissistic parents aren't good for kids. So if you're parenting with a narcissist, we're going to give the other parent full custody. Not happening. State of California, 50-50. All right? Unless somebody doesn't want that. So what happens then is a person says, if I decide to split up from this person, I'm only going to be with my kids 50% of the time. And I don't want them with that influence 50% of the time. So some people will stay. My favorite is when people file for divorce, like the day of their youngest child's 18th birthday. I'm like, I know what that was about. You see that happen quite a bit. They literally wait till that day. And then at 18, those kids are free agents. So there's no one can say you have to be here, you have to stay here, you have to celebrate this holiday with that or anything. They get to call their own shots.
So how do you...
So you just
have to have extreme patience, I feel like.
It's beyond patience. It's radical acceptance. Patience is endurance. Radical acceptance.
This thing sounds exhausting.
Is getting it. It is absolutely exhausting. It's just knowing that this isn't going to change. You ever spend time in Chicago? I'm sure you have, right? Go to Chicago. It's February in Chicago.
Oh, it's miserable.
Are you going to go for a run in just your shorts and no shirt?
No, unless you're crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Because in February in Chicago, it's cold. It's radical acceptance.
Yeah, so you just accept it.
Right? Yeah. If your window's facing east and you don't want the sun to wake you up, get curtains. Radical acceptance. You cannot talk to a narcissist. So I tell people, there's another concept I use is something called true north. Sometimes you have to get into the argument. True north are those things that you're going to fight for because they're important to your core values. So who you are. For some folks, it's their kids. For some people, it may be a cause they believe in or a belief they have, or they will not listen to prejudicial language. True North gets activated and they'll say, I'm taking the fight. They pull off the gloves, they pull out the earrings, and then they're in. They're just, they'll go at it It is exhausting.
Nothing good happens, does it?
Nothing good happens, right? But at least they can say, I took the fight, Dr. Ramani, so I could live with myself.
Right.
To know that I fought for
Stood
my
up
kids.
for what I
I stood up, but do not get into the fight about the dishwasher or why were you late to the party, or why were you rude to my sister, or whatever. I mean, if you keep taking every fight, it's exhausting. The minute you let go, what happens though is when a person finally gives up, they're overwhelmed with grief. They're like, there's nothing here. There's nothing to talk about. I can't tell them good news because they make fun of it or they dismiss it. I can't tell them bad news because they get really angry and rageful. So all we can really talk about is the weather. I'm like, it.
But what do you do with the rest of your time?
You cultivate other stuff in your life, interests.
Can you love a narcissist, or is it impossible to love a narcissist?
It's a subjective question, right? Love is such a complicated word. It means something different to you. It means something different to me. It means different things to the people out in the street. So that's the bigger question I often get is, can a narcissist love?
Is that possible?
It depends on,
besides loving themselves.
What is cold to you? Right? You're in short sleeves. I'm in a sweater.
Yeah.
Can narcissists love? I would say what generally happens is narcissists use, control, and exploit other people. That's generally what they do.
So it's a subjective word. So lots of people love narcissists. They do. They're like, I love this person. They represent something to me. Maybe this is where it starts getting to a philosophical question. Maybe when we love someone, it is very representational. We love what they stand for. We love what we believe they are, but we don't know. Maybe we never know someone enough to love them. So, again, that's a philosophical conversation.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, there are people out there who will say, parents are a great example. People have narcissistic parents. Like, I love my mother, or I love my father. I can't stand them.
Right. Sure.
But love is much more metaphysical.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So
what's the biggest misconceptions about a narcissist then?
That they love themselves.
They don't love themselves.
Oh, hell no. It's self-loathing. This is a disorder of self-loathing. All that inadequacy and ugly insecurity, they hate themselves.
Really?
And so this is the one I don't necessarily agree with her on this. I think some of them might, especially the vulnerable types, but I'm also believing more the studies that say, and the new research that says, vulnerable narcissism really might just be borderline personality disorder. And she's also referring to the compensatory types here too. They're overcompensating for their inadequacies and insecurities. I don't think that's always the case. I think there's a fair amount of narcissists that think they're pretty great and they don't really think too much about it. And they think, I'm just great. And they don't have all this internal shame and this constant insecurity or feelings of inadequacy. It's what I think some people wish they felt, but I don't think it's always accurate. I mean, there's people like Dana White, Trump, other big politicians, Teddy Roosevelt, they'll say, fill in the blank. I'm trying to keep it even here. But do those people hate themselves and are full of self-loathing? I don't necessarily think so. I think many of them are just on a different playing field. They just don't even think in the same ways that other people do. They want what they want, and they don't really think there's much of a problem with them because how they are is helping them to get more of what they want. And again, I think some people like to think, oh, they must hate themselves. They must be full of self-loathing. And I think what they're thinking is, I would hate myself if I also treated people the way the narcissist treats people. But again, narcissists are not like normal people. They are different people. And that's something I see a lot of people really struggle to accept. But let's see how else she explains it.
And then they put it on other people.
I project it onto other people. You're a horrible, lying, disgusting person. You make me sick.
Oh my gosh.
They're talking about themselves.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes you just want to give them a hug.
So narcissists are miserable.
They're miserable. Miserable. It's awful. I actually say that the compassion we can find in ourselves is people are like, I want to get revenge on them. I say, you don't have to. They have to keep being them.
They have to live with it.
The universe wins on that one. Like, they have to keep being them. It is Imagine every day you're comparing yourself to everyone. You're thinking, they have that and they have that. How come I don't have this? And how come this? And they're constantly anxious. They're constantly angry. They constantly feel like a victim. They feel like everyone is out to get them. That's a very difficult way to live.
Their nervous system must be always heightened too.
Kind of. Yeah. Different than their psychopathic cousins there.
Who doesn't feel it, yeah.
Yeah. But narcissists really, it's a very uncomfortable way to live because they always feel like they're getting the short end of the stick.
And so what are the signs then if you're a kid and you've thought one thing about your parents, but all of a sudden you're starting to see like, oh, maybe I have one parent who's narcissistic. What would you say are the main signs if a parent for a kid would be narcissistic?
I don't think let's say a child is anyone under 13. I don't even think kids start understanding that their parents are messed up until they're around middle school or high school. Selfishness, real inattentiveness,
dismissiveness,
devaluation of their emotions, shaming them, humiliating them, expecting them to be like them, devaluing them if they don't excel at the things they want. What do you mean you don't want to go to Harvard? Or like, ugh, you want to go to that college? Like any kind of contemptuous dismissiveness of their children. That's all narcissistic parent behavior.
Wow.
Rage is a big one. And I think that's probably the one my clients have brought in most. Anger, but rage. Like that, walking on eggshells. If anyone says to me, I felt like I was always walking on eggshells around my parent, probably dealing with an antagonistic, like a narcissistic parent.
Yeah, I think I was telling you beforehand, I felt that for a part of my life, and then things started to shift. But I've definitely walked on eggshells for many relationships in the past, which makes me be like, why did I jump into different relationships where I felt that way? Which maybe I hadn't learned to heal the past yet, or I hadn't learned to.
But you didn't jump into a relationship.
I didn't feel that in the beginning.
You didn't feel it at the beginning.
But it was like 6 to 12 months later when I was
justified.
Then I justified, let's just get back to where it was.
One of the I would say your greatest vulnerability, quite frankly, to narcissistic relationships is your history as an athlete.
Okay.
Athletes are actually at not only great risk of being narcissistic, but for falling for narcissists.
Why is that?
And a lot of that is because for any gifted athlete, all you needed to do was work harder. You just had to go to the gym or had to run or do whatever it was you needed to do. It just meant more reps.
Yes.
There was always a way to make it better. You're gonna do the Sunday workout. You're gonna go to the gym at 4 a.m.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah,
and so the more you had this belief, you got better and you were in control. So the belief is you could extend that to anyone. I just gotta talk to them harder. I'm gonna be more clear. I'm gonna make
loving,
this work.
More present,
I'm gonna be more loving.
Giving.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to put it there by Dr. Ramani. And I know exactly what she means. That there are some people, athletes or not, when something's not working, they have the mindset of, I want to make this work. I want to make this happen. I want to collaborate. And if the relationship doesn't work, they take it as a failure. They see it as a failure and they don't want to be a failure. So they try and they try and they try to make it work. Now, what Dr. Ramani is saying, athletes are actually more susceptible to narcissists and vulnerable to narcissists because of this. I would say possibly. I would say that only applies if they apply that same mindset to their relationships. It's not a guarantee that they do. They might have that try, go attitude towards athletics and sports, but maybe in their relationships, maybe they don't really care too much about relationships. And so they don't have that attitude in relationships. It really just depends. Some might, some probably don't. And I've seen the same thing with women who are athletes or women who have the mindset of not wanting to give up, not wanting to admit defeat. That very thing can keep them stuck in these toxic relationships. So it's important to understand a couple things. One, you can't change anyone else who doesn't want to change themselves. Two, it only takes one person to ruin a relationship. But if you want the relationship to work, you need both people to be willing participants to collaborate. If someone isn't willing, they don't want to collaborate, there's nothing the other person can do. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And so you have to accept that. And again, a lot of this comes down to who do you even pick in the beginning anyway? Because so much of relationships really is compatibility as well. Besides pathological narcissism and other personality disorders, our compatibility with someone else is huge.
Everything becomes a workout.
oh my gosh, this is what I did in the last 10 years. In every relationship for the last 10 years. And I remember just being like, it would never felt enough. And it was always draining to give. It was never enough what I gave. There was always something wrong with me. There was always something to pick at.
Yep.
And they never wanted to go to therapy with me. It was funny because I was like, what meant, I don't want to generalize, but I was like, I'm a guy who wants to go to therapy and get feedback from I'm not perfect. Give me feedback. Tell me how to improve, because I'm an athlete, right? I'm like, I want to improve. And they never wanted to. I was just like, I think women would kill for this, for a guy who wanted to go to therapy with them.
Not a narcissistic woman.
Oh my gosh.
But that idea of surrender is kind of actually the opposite of what an athlete is conditioned to become, right? And that's really the core of the narcissistic relationship. It's a sense of surrender. I'm not engaging with this. I'm not doing this. It doesn't work. And then you just fold it and step away.
No, it was more like, I want to make this work.
Exactly.
What can I do to make it better? How can I improve? Tell me what I can do. I'm here. I'll support. I'll do this. And then it drains your energy.
Athletes, entrepreneurs are at risk. Anyone who's a doer and it's worked for them, they're screwed.
It wasn't until I really started lifting the veil, as my therapist talks about, is like I started to really realize, like, okay, I don't need to keep working. You talked about this in one of your recent videos, like the marriage and relationships should be hard work is kind of the narrative. And when I realized, like, it should feel like commitment and that there's attention and presence, but it shouldn't feel like this draining hard work.
No.
I agree. It shouldn't feel like that. I think when you find someone you're compatible with, what might be hard with someone that you're not compatible with will be a lot easier with someone that you are compatible with. Because when you're compatible with someone, it's going to be easier to have those difficult conversations. And in fact, there's probably going to be fewer difficult conversations, because if you're not compatible, even the smallest of things can become a difficult conversation. And mountains get made from molehills. But when you're compatible with somebody, less likely to happen. Of course, there can always be difficult conversations. There can always be conflict. But it seems a lot easier when you're actually compatible with someone. You have a similar temperament, perhaps similar values. Everything is a lot easier in that case.
Oh,
otherwise, I'd rather be single if that's what it is. It's
exactly. And I think that, and I have to tell you, a lot of people have had a lot of harm done to them in therapy, where therapists say to them, well,
it's hard work.
Relationships are hard work. No, it's not. I mean, yeah, maybe having to say no, like having to sit through a football game you don't want to watch. I don't know if that's hard work, like because they sat and watch your French film with you.
It's just an uncomfortable moment.
I'm just going to read my book while you watch your football game. Like, we're good.
Yeah, it's fine. I can show up for a few hours.
That's not hard work.
Yeah.
Hard, and the other person's kind, right? Again, every healthy relationship has the same core ingredients: kindness, compassion, patience, mutuality of regard, reciprocity, respect.
Yeah.
Every single one. And as long as you got that
flexibility,
no narcissistic relationship has even one of those ingredients. So that's why they don't work. They don't work. So yeah, they're always going to be hard work because you have not one of the essential ingredients. Like you're trying to bake a cake without flour, eggs, or sugar. Good luck with that.
I don't think she mentioned compatibility, but that's one of the big ones I would mention too. Compatibility.
How do you know when you're entering a new relationship if the person is not a narcissist? Like maybe you've been in a narcissistic relationship or your parent was or whatever it is, and you have some PTS from those experiences. And you feel like, well, I'm supposed to be walking on eggshells, but I don't need to. It's kind of healthy. Yeah. Like, is the shoe going to drop? Like when you know the person isn't a narcissist, how long does that take to find out?
About the same amount of time it takes to discover that they are, in the sense that the difference is narcissists actually there's red flags, right?
Okay.
I call these green flags. Green flags mean go. And green flags are things like watch how the person behaves under conditions of stress.
That's a good one. So I'll tell you what mine are before she says. What you do is you see how they respond to the word no. If you have boundaries, you see how they respond to that. You see how they respond to not getting their way. You see how they respond to people that can do nothing for them, like maybe servers, etc. They say character is how you treat people that can do nothing for you. What else? And if they get really upset when you tell them no, or they don't get their way, and they lash out at you and get really reactive and rage, red flags. Absolutely red flags. And again, keep your eyes open and your heart open for that fake energy, because energy is the one thing people can't fake as well. But let's see what she says.
So let's say that you're running late to the airport. Great. That's a great example of a stress, right? How are they acting? And are they, they're saying, oh, I'm a little worried about this, but we're going to make it work. And listen, what's the worst that's going to happen? We'll get rebooked. And they're calm and like, listen, I'm just glad to be here with you. Like, we'll figure it out.
To make the most of the moment.
We'll go to an airport hotel if we have to.
Yeah,
but we're going to be fine. A narcissist, when they're running late to the airport, oh no.
What happens?
So, and it's just, I'm not going to curse, right?
Exhausting.
But it's chaos, stress, accusations. This is your fault. Entitlement. Gosh. Let me speak to the manager. Get me on that plane. Get that plane back to the gate.
Exactly what happened. She's absolutely right about this.
Oh my
like
gosh.
that kind, that's the narcissist, right? Whereas with the with somebody, you watch them, and it doesn't have to be something as dramatic as the airport. It could be even something like, hey, I noticed you've been working late. How about I make some dinner? So it's the noticing, it's the presence, it's the mindfulness, it's the willingness to be flexible and make compromise when it's needed, to meet you halfway, to listen to you. And more than anything is to also see the growth potential in you. So not to be threatened by your own success. So if you go up to this person and you're like, hey, you know what? I got this totally cool new opportunity. And the healthy person says, that is amazing. You have worked your whole life. I saw this in you. What can we do to make this work for you? Whereas everybody else, and not just narcissists, but insecure people will say, oh, I guess that's just going to mean more time away and you're going to be traveling a lot. There's going to be a lot of women on the road. And you're like, oh my gosh, they just got the job of their dreams.
Oh my gosh.
And that's
bringing back so many memories to me.
That's the key. And I'm a big believer that, there's actually something I'm going a little off topic, but you're an off topic guy.
It's
you
great.
can handle
I love
it. There's something called the Michelangelo phenomenon. One person in the relationship sees the absolute potential in the other in such a way that they say, what do we need to do to get you to your dream? Like, should we take a second on the house? Should we cut back? Should we move closer in? Like, because I see, or what could be as simple as they eat a cake that their partner made and said, okay, this is the best cake I've ever had. Have you ever thought of making this into a business? Or a partner of yours might have said, you ask the most amazing questions. You need a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, it's seeing that something bigger in the person.
That's a good thing. That's
the Michelangelo phenomenon. That's everything.
That's a good thing.
It's the best thing. And
I would actually have pause for concern for that, because some of the toxic people that I've known that are narcissistic, that's one of the things they'll do in the love bombing is they'll blow your head up and say, oh my goodness, you're the most amazing podcaster I've ever heard. You need to be doing this. You're the most attractive person. You should be a model. That's a little bit different. And that's something to pay attention to, where down the line, like, there's a way to do it that wouldn't be a love bombing way to do it. But also what she's also referring to is collaboration. If you can collaborate with someone and they can truly be happy for your success instead of envious of your success, that's a big one too. Because I've certainly cut people off before that were very upset when I would succeed, and they wanted to do better than me. And if I did well, it took away from them. And they told on themselves with certain ways they treated me. And so I said, you know what? I don't need people like that around. See you later.
very few relationships get that, because what you got to do is that person who's saying, go be your best you, is secure enough to say, I'm not going to lose you.
Right.
Like, I see all the good in you.
Yeah.
And
I want the best for you.
And I want the best for you. And I believe in you. And I'm here with you. And that might even mean the person encouraging you might have to make sacrifice. Things like, you know, I know that you're going to have to go take this course for 6 months and I may not see you. And that's okay, because this is our future together. That's the Michelangelo phenomenon. Ever happened.
What's the opposite of that?
Another big one would be, how do they act when no one's looking? How do they act when there's no one that can give them narcissistic supply or any kind of admiration? And one way this comes out is after time, when the narcissist doesn't get as much positive supply from the romantic partner, that's when they'll switch to devaluing, because then they'll get negative supply. But yeah, pay attention to how they treat the people that can't do much for them. If there isn't a way to put on a show or a persona, they're not doing something for the image and how it will appear to other people, how do they act then? If there's a night and day difference between how they'll act when they think, oh, I want to put this persona out there for the world because I want this supply, and then behind closed doors, oh no, completely the opposite. They don't act like that at all. That double standard there, that hypocrisy, don't ignore that.
Narcissistic relationship.
For people who have ended relationships with a narcissist or narcissistic personalities, what's the best way for them to enter a new relationship without?
What the hell happened here? Why is it skipping in between interviews of them? Did he splice these in there? I don't like it.
For some folks, you know, it's the again, the activation, the trauma bond, the sort of hot and cold is what equals love, that I need to earn love, that I constantly have to feel like I'm running faster and faster on the treadmill becomes equated with love. That's the love equals chaos.
Well, what I'm hearing you say, the ultimate experiment in a relationship is when both parties are seeing the masterpiece in each other and are supportive of each other. And when one is succeeding, the person I'm with right now, she's incredible. She's just a walking success. Everything she does is just successful. I'm so happy for her.
Right.
I want her to succeed. I'm like, this is amazing. Let's celebrate you.
And she's happy for you.
She's happy for me.
Bingo. It has to be a two-way street.
She admires the work I'm doing. She admires the mission we're on to help people. And she's like, what can I do to support you? It feels interesting. I mean, it feels beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I mean, and that's the key though, because that ability to sort of again, to have that co-located growth, that Michelangelo, if you will. You're in essence, you're realizing the statue from the raw piece of marble every day, and you're both sculpting that for the other. But that's again, no narcissistic relationship is like that. And with a narcissistic relationship, it's really the them show. Like everyone is just sort of in the audience watching that.
I don't agree with that. I think it can be like that in the beginning, as I've said. It can be part of the love bombing. So I would not agree with what she just said, that the narcissist will never have any of this Michelangelo effect and try to like push you to be better. No, I think that does happen. That does happen in love bombing. It won't last. That's the difference. It won't last. But to think it never happens that way, that's a mistake, in my opinion.
And celebrating them. They can be the only great one in a relationship.
Really? Is it possible that two narcissists would be in a relationship together?
I actually love when that happens because it kind of gets them out of the water supply for everybody else. I'm like,
because they're both miserable with each other. They're like perfect for each other.
Here's what it is. They're very volatile relationships. They're very superficial relationships. A lot of people who are power couples, that's sometimes what you're seeing, like this kind of, they're only about the aspiration. They're not about the empathy. But in any relationship of two narcissists, as soon as somebody doesn't stay in their lane. So let's say one classical trope of two narcissists in a relationship, one partner, very wealthy, very powerful, very successful. The other one, very beautiful, looks good, goes places with this one, looks good with them. It all looks good together.
They complement each other.
Compliment's a strong word. The first time this one, though, might look someplace else because this one's a narcissist person, this person, the powerful one, it's narcissistic, may notice someone else, this person's going to blow up because they're doing their beautiful thing full time. And they're like, how can someone be more beautiful?
If you're not looking at me obsessive, then you're not giving me all the attention.
Lots of jealousy, lots of volatility, lots of me, lots of...
So this is what's going to happen when two narcissists get together. It does happen. And I do think there's some people in the space, the narcissistic abuse space, that have just been out-narked. I do think that too. But what will happen is there's going to be a power struggle. And the narcissist that has the strongest belief in their own reality is going to win the power struggle. And then the other narc is going to be more of the victim role in that case. And generally, it can remain static, where that person who won the power struggle, generally they're going to stay in control. Now, depending, there can be ups and downs occasionally. Maybe if the person that was out-narked breaks up, maybe the narcissist will try to chase them in that case. But there's going to be that power struggle. And then at that point, it's going to be some fireworks, let me tell you. And I won't call it collaboration. There can kind of be a mutual supply seeking in a way. That's probably the closest that narcissists will come to collaboration, but not true collaboration, I would say.
Egocentricity, lots of, on social media, it's like, I'm so blessed, hashtag love my person, hashtag best relationship ever. I mean, I laugh when I see that, because I'm like, ooh, yeah, there we go. You know, another super narcissistic relationship where it's all about advertising the relationship, but it's very superficial, very volatile, no empathy. There's no depth to the intimacy. It's almost transactional. That's what happens when two narcissists get together. I honestly would be fine with all the narcissists pairing up like Noah's Ark, as long as none of them have kids. Because that's a real number on the kids.
You're messed.
Yeah.
You're traumatized.
It's a really empty way to grow up. Those kids that grow up, they either become incredibly anxious as adults, or they become narcissistic as adults. It's not a good look.
I don't know if I'm inspired by this conversation or depressed.
Yeah.
What's the percentage? How many?
I mean, Lewis has talked to her twice before. I don't really know why he's getting depressed about this. Maybe just getting discouraged at how it is. It almost sounds like he's having some kind of relationship issues here, and it's kind of hitting home for him what she's saying. I'm not saying that's definitely what it is, but a little bit about what it sounds like, or maybe he's reflecting on past relationships he's had that fits the criteria of what she's talking about.
What's the percentage of people in the world who are narcissists? Do we have that even?
Okay,
number?
so here's where it gets interesting. So let's start with something we haven't talked about yet. So give me a way to talk about this. A lot of people use the word narcissistic, or the term narcissistic personality disorder. I actually think it's phenomenal that you haven't been using it, because it's a mistake to use that languaging. And I'll tell you why.
Narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay.
Interesting. This is news to me. Let's see what Dr. Ramani has to say about this.
So PD. So lots of people out there will say, oh, I'm in this relationship where I've got this boss and they have narcissistic personality disorder. I'm always like, slow down, sister. Okay. Because narcissistic personality disorder, like all diagnoses, require a full workup, a lengthy clinical interview. It even takes me, I'm going to be honest with you, if I have a client in my office, it usually takes me 4 to 6 sessions to be confident that that's what I'm dealing with the disorder.
Because you could have narcissistic personality traits.
Correct.
And it's different than
it's very
a disorder.
Different. And it gets into the weeds in terms of diagnostic stuff you don't want to.
It could be more like when I'm triggered, I have narcissistic traits as opposed to.
It's more complex than that, because it's that in order to give someone a diagnosis in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, in order to give someone a diagnosis, that person who's showing the symptoms has to either be uncomfortable themselves, like we call it subjective distress. So like depressed people are like, they're like, I'm miserable. I'm miserable. I'm sad all the time. I can't get out of bed. That's subjective distress. Or they have to have something called social and occupational impairment, meaning that the symptoms are getting in the way of their lives in a way that they're aware of, right? It's causing problems for them. Where this gets dicey with narcissistic personality is that, first of all, a lot of narcissists are on top of the world. They think their lives are great. They walk around saying, like, I'm the one, I'm the guy, I'm number one, I'm the best. Look how great I am.
And so that's a little bit of a contradiction with her constant insecurity and feelings of inadequacy that she was saying before. But let's go on.
Hey, I've got success. I've got the girl, whatever it is, it's working for me.
So everything's working for them. So that's no subjective distress.
Wrong with
no.
Me. Yeah.
Social and occupational impairment. Now, in some cases, they may be having trouble at work, and then, sure, they'll meet that criterion. But for a lot of folks just walking around in the street, they're making bank at work. They got a partner and a side piece. Like everything's working out for them. So they don't even think they're having that impairment. But what they're doing is they're blowing up other people's lives.
Oh yeah.
We as therapists cannot issue a diagnosis of social. We can't say that they have social and occupational impairment because someone else is bothered by them. Make sense?
Yeah.
And that's a great point there by Dr. Ramani. And that's one of the big reasons why the diagnosis of narcissism, NPD, is really not what is important to me. What I always say is the narcissistic operating system. If someone has that, and how will you know if they have that? If when you put their behavior through the lens of everything they do is about power, control, managing their image, narcissistic supply, and avoiding accountability, if that makes everything they do make sense, chances are they have a narcissistic operating system. And because of that social and work impairment piece, to me, that makes the diagnosis of NPD just almost, it doesn't hit the mark at that point, because you're missing it. You're missing it if that's what it needs to be diagnosed, because like she said, it's causing impairment in other people's lives, just not theirs. So how can that still be an element of the criteria for NPD? It doesn't make sense to me. So when people say NPD is so rare, 1 to 6% or whatever they say, I would say to them, dude, that's not even what matters. The way it's diagnosed is hogwash. What matters is the narcissistic operating system. So I agree. I agree with Dr. Ramani on this.
It has to be in the it has to be that the person is saying, I'm not going to work on time, or I got a DUI. Those are examples of social and occupational impairment or behavioral impairment. I personally think they need to get rid of the diagnosis. I think it's worth nothing. It's a diagnosis with no treatment. So why would you have a disease that you can't treat? There's no point to that. So so now let's go to the numbers, because the epidemiological studies are studies that tell us the number of people or the percentage of people who have a given mental illness, a given disorder.
Gotcha.
So the epidemiology statistics on narcissistic personality disorder put the rate somewhere between 1 and 6%. Okay.
Oh. That's people who are diagnosed with this.
Okay. So
that's what I said, isn't it?
So they've gone into research studies.
But most people aren't diagnosed because they would never come in and do these sessions. And
so the million dollar question.
How many do you think?
This is my number. This is the Dr. Ramani number.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going with 20 to 25%.
Oh, of the world.
Oh my Lord, her numbers are going up. Before she said 1 in 6. So now she says 20 to 25%. And what she means, I think, is a narcissistic operating system. I think. But let me let her finish.
World or of the US
world,
or
the world. 1 in 5 to 1 in 4.
You think it's narcissistic?
So 1 in 5 is probably, and I'm saying adults. Let's take the kids out, okay? So 18 and above, 20%. That would make it 1 in 5. And I would tell you in a major metro like LA, I'm going to 25%. I think that just the pressures of the city, especially New York, LA
Miami,
being an entertainment city, the nature that sort of it's a company town, and the business of the town is very superficial and very validation seeking. So I'd say 25% here. So that's 1 in 5. So buddy, if you know 5 people, one of them's narcissistic.
I don't know if I think it's that high, because I mean, I know what a narcissistic operating system looks like. Not everyone who has some narcissistic traits has a narcissistic operating system. So again, I would like to know what her criteria is for it. What do I think in terms of narcissistic operating system? I don't know, honestly. I don't know. Maybe 5 to 10%. It's hard to say. But also, it doesn't really even matter. You look what's in front of you. How are the people in your life? That's really what matters.
When do you know someone is not a narcissist? What are the qualities that they possess? Real qualities.
It's empathy, kindness, respect, flexibility, self-awareness, the capacity to reflect on their impact on other people, emotional regulation, managing, this is more of the emotional regulation, like managing negative states like frustration and disappointment, genuine curiosity about others, setting goals from an internal space rather than what they think the world expects of them.
That's
having
a beautiful one,
having a strong sense of identity, a sense of who they are, having a solid sense of values, a conscientiousness, agreeableness. These are the things that make a person not narcissistic.
It's nice to be around those type of people.
Oh, they're so good. And I feel blessed. I have a fair number of those in my life,
I feel like
but I'm very careful. Like I curate my world the way some people curate their closets. Like I don't. And I've made the mistake because recently this year I've let more than a few in. So it happens.
You've let narcissistic friends
people in. Yeah.
Really?
So I agree with Dr. Ramani that we should be curating the people that are around us. We become like the people we surround ourselves with, and we shouldn't be opening ourselves up just to anybody. So yeah, we should absolutely be careful with who we let in to our inner circle. Remember, it's better to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. And in this case, it is good to judge in this case. You should judge the people you let close to you, because why wouldn't you? And now you can maybe trifle with me about the definition of judge, but you should think about their character, and you want to surround yourself with good character. Now, Dr. Ramani says even Dr. Ramani has let in some narcissistic people this year. Why could that be? Why do you think that is? I think I know why it is. She is in the upper echelons of the YouTube world now. She is when people think narcissism on YouTube, Dr. Ramani is in one of the top 3 people they'll mention. And so she's seeing all these big podcasters, whether it's Lewis Howes, Tony Robbins, Jay Shetty, who else? Diary of a CEO, all these guys. Some of these people can certainly have a bit of a narcissistic operating system. I don't think that's an exaggeration. The higher you go up in the sphere, the more there are. So if Dr. Ramani is involving herself in these circles, maybe even Mel Robbins, it wouldn't surprise me if Mel Robbins has a narcissistic operating system, but that could very easily be the reason why.
I'm getting, and I got to tell you, it just means that people who've been through what's called narcissistic abuse, or all the negative psychological impacts of being in a narcissistic relationship, one thing I work with people on is just narrowing their social world. Like
and yes, person in the comments said Jada Pinkett. She is like the poster child for female narcissism, and Dr. Ramani's involved herself with her. Which, to be honest here, you're Dr. Ramani. How do you not see that Jada Pinkett and what she's done and how she's treated Will Smith? I could do a whole breakdown on that. I should break down that talk they did. Holy mackerel.
Unfortunately, at 1 in 5, what are the odds, right? They're pretty darn good. You date 5 people, one of them. And depending on what swimming pool you're pulling these people out of, it could be 1 in 3.
So even you've attracted people in your life.
100%. And I know what my vulnerabilities are. I'm very aware of it. My personal vulnerabilities are things like I devalue myself. I feel like I'm not enough.
Really?
I pity people kind of easily. And so narcissists actually are pitiful people. And that pity can sometimes drive me to say, maybe I should try harder. So at this point in my life, I'm closed off in a way that actually sometimes makes me feel guilty. And I'm like, yeah, that if that's the price of poker, I'm good. Like I've been through too many times at this rodeo that I don't want to do it. So it's definitely my own lack of valuing of myself is what's made me vulnerable to narcissists. If I boiled it down to one simple thing, is that I feel like I'm not good enough.
Really?
And because I feel like I'm not good enough, I let those kinds of people in. So what I found, unfortunately, is that it's just better off to close the gates and not let anyone in. Not let anyone in. Unfortunately, yeah.
I kind of find it hard to believe that Dr. Ramani feels that way now. I feel like maybe she did before, but now it seems like she has no problems being the go-to person for all things narcissism. I mean, you could almost say there's a little bit of grandiosity in that even, but she has no problems being referred to as like the number one person on narcissism. I mean, is that the actions of someone that has a low sense of self-worth? I don't think so. I'm not saying this as an insult, but it just doesn't seem like something that someone with a low sense of self-worth would do.
Kind of the downstream effect.
Or, I mean, would you say the greatest defense against attracting narcissism is to fully love yourself?
It's to fully love yourself, to be deeply authentic. I consider myself authentic-ish, authentic adjacent, but I know I've got a ways to go because I still struggle with the monkey on my back of feeling like I'm not enough kind of thing. Yeah. And I know that. And that's my work in my own therapy on that consistently. And, but I know where my barriers are. So, anything that pings that, it's great. It's interesting. My staff is fantastic. I mean, and they're much younger than me. This is what's so remarkable about it. They actually act like guard dogs.
That's great.
They're like, we feel like one's coming. No. And I'll be like, I kind of feel bad for them. Like, good for you. Go feel bad in another room. We're not letting them in. So these two are gangster. I mean, they're the two most amazing young women. Yeah.
And yet Jada Pinkett got through their system there. So it makes me wonder how legit their filters are there. If she got through, maybe they're not as good as they think they are. Now, my guardrails for narcissism is this: practicing radical self-respect. There is no world where you can practice radical self-respect and stay with a narcissist for long, because inevitably what will happen is they'll force you into positions where you have to disrespect yourself to continue the relationship. Guaranteed. It's just a matter of time before that happens. It might not happen instantly, but if you know what to look for, you'll be more likely to notice the red flags when they happen. And then most importantly of all, it's not even about just noticing them. It's about acting on them. So many of the clients I've had, they've seen the red flags. They saw them, but they told themselves a story about them and they stayed. They deered, as I call it, defended, excused, explained, or rationalized away the behavior. Or maybe they didn't want to admit defeat and they thought ending the relationship would be failure. So they pushed through, like how Dr. Ramani was talking about the people who are into athletics are more vulnerable to narcissism. But when you practice radical self-respect and you see those things, it will protect you. It will protect you. You just have to be mindful of the stories you tell yourself and really be careful about that if you catch yourself deering to yourself. But as long as you practice radical self-respect, they're going to put you in a position where they're going to force you to disrespect yourself to continue the relationship. And at that point, you walk away. That's what I would say. And if you do that, now you're protected.
What's the key to learning how to love ourselves fully so that when we see someone coming in, we just say, nah, we're okay. We don't need to let you into our life.
So let's go back to the Carl Rogers, the humanist I was talking about before. It's to lift the conditions of worth from our lives, that we are lovable and cherishable simply because we are. I mean, we could get totally into a different conversation about we're all made of energy. Who judges energy, right? Like, we're all lovable because we're the stuff of life, and that makes us beautiful and lovable. And so it's—
Who said this?
Carl Rogers talks about conditions of worth. Dr. Ramani says, and many others I do believe say, we're energy. Like, who judges energy? It's like judging the sun. I guess we do, like we wear sunscreen.
Carl Rogers is all about unconditional positive regard. That's one of the things that he says. And that's what he tells people to do in the therapeutic relationship. That's what I learned about when I was in school for mental health counseling.
You're right.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's these conditions of worth, like whatever people say to themselves, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not accomplished enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. Those conditions of worth, I would be lovable if. As soon as you put love and if in the same sentence, you're screwed.
Wow.
So it's very much like dropping all that and saying you're lovable because you are. Everyone is lovable. Everyone is cherishable. All of us, not because somebody's more beautiful or somebody's more famous or somebody's more attractive. It's not, or rich or something like that. But it's hard because we're given the message of you're better if you look this way, act this way, do this way, live here, drive this. It's a lot to break out of. And so I think that, and those narratives even go deeper than materialism. It's almost like as a kid, many kids they almost felt like you grow up with a parent who's not attentive in any way or not interested they're not paying attention because I'm not interesting.
Enough.
I'm not enough.
And I get attention when I...
And so I agree with Dr. Ramani on that. Pay attention if you say to yourself, I'm lovable if. That's problematic because predators, narcissistic people, psychopathic people on the dark triad or tetrad, they're going to try to exploit that. So be mindful if you believe that about yourself. Now, I'll get vulnerable here about something. I think for me, and I think part of this is because me being on the spectrum, I'll start to think I don't even want to be in a romantic relationship until I'm where I want to be in my career and financially. And that's kind of you could say that's an if. I don't know if it's technically an if, but that's how I'll see it sometimes. I'll say, I don't even want it unless I'm in this place. And I think part of that also is part of the autistic thing where it's hard for me to really focus intensely on more than one thing at a time. If I'm on social media, in social media zone, creating content zone, that's what I'm doing. Or if I'm in relationship zone, which I haven't been in for a while now, I'm in that zone. So it's difficult for me to transition between the phases sometimes, but that's something I work on.
Excel in something that they like, and so let me do more of that to get more attention.
Exactly.
And if I lose at that, then they're not going to love me. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So it all becomes like people think like if I do these things, then I can be loved, rather than you're just lovable. And so that's the that's where most people lose the plot. And I think the other piece, those people don't understand narcissism. I think that a lot of people say, "Oh, come on, now everyone can change," or some I just got to get to know them better, or they don't really mean that. We enable it, we justify it. But if people really got to learn, like, no, that's unacceptable. That tantrum they just threw, not okay. That entitled behavior, not okay. And honestly get to the point where I don't care why they're behaving like this. They're behaving like this.
So how do you create boundaries with the narcissist?
It's not easy. I mean, I think that the narcissistic people, the key with a narcissistic person is to detect it early, set boundaries early, because then they get disinterested and they walk away.
And they'll be like,
right? You're not an easy mark anymore, right? So charm and charisma come walking in the door. I think I'm the only person in the world who's telling people, if you meet someone charming and charismatic, run away. Like, get away from them. This is dangerous.
But are there some people that are charming and charismatic who aren't narcissistic?
Yeah, but I'm all about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's one way to do it, to play it safe. But what I would say in terms of boundaries, you just have your boundaries and then you pay attention to how they respect them. If they don't respect them, then it's up to us to do something. And this is where people mess it up. When they're not respected, then they'll try to hold the narcissist accountable and they'll try to get them to admit they did something wrong. You disrespected me, or you did this. But what happens? The narcissist just refuses to admit they did anything wrong. They refuse to take accountability. And if you're not careful, that can be a never-ending circular conversation. So the way I say to hold a narcissist accountable is to enforce consequences. That's the only way to do it. Often, that will mean walking away. In other cases, it might mean something else, depending on the situation. But that's usually the progression. You have boundaries. Narcissists do not like boundaries, because boundaries get in the way of them controlling you, and they just can't help themselves but to try to bulldoze them, because they want to treat you however they want. And if you were to dare treat them the same way that they treat you, that would be the end of the world, of course, because they have rules for thee but not for me, and double standards, and they're hypocrites.
Sure.
So it's because charming, charismatic people, I would say then always make sure they have humility.
There you go.
If you have the humility back,
that's the unicorn.
Okay.
That's the unicorn. That's when you're like, they're charming and they're humble. Humble, like, and
they're all that. They're incredible, and they're like, listen, I'm great. Can you just tell me about you a little bit? Talk a little bit about you. There's that's humility.
A keeper in your life.
Yeah, that's a keeper. Or you can see how they're talking to other people, their interest in other people. They're not talking down to people, maybe because, let's say, they're in a service position that evening, right? That they're not, and not in a smarmy, like, oh, the server's my best friend, but like, they're not like that. It's none of that. It's really like, oh, let me wait for the server to come along and see if I can get, or whatever. I mean, they're just really, they're present in a situation. They're not elitist. They're not status conscious. That kind of humility. That they don't brag, that they're all that, and they're not going on about how all that they are.
That's cool.
They're not talking about, oh, let me tell you about my new this and my new that and this accomplishment and they're actually able to be with you, be present with you. It's rare because, again, people who are that hyped up, they're hyped up from all sides. You have to be really resistant, authentic, self-actualized to not to not drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. What else do we need to know about narcissists? Is there anything else you think that's important for us?
I think that
1 in 5 of your friends is a narcissist.
So, I mean, if we're using this number of 20%, okay, which I don't think is a bad number, to be honest with you. I think that just, it's a spitball number, and it's just sort of boiled up in this world, and it may be a urban myth. I don't know.
Right.
It's hard to get good data on this, right? You know, it's the assessment of narcissism is one of the hardest things in the business of measurement and psychology. Because who's going to be honest about it, right? There's all these backdoors we try to do to figure it out. But I'd say the other things, let's talk a little bit about what happens to a person who's been in a relationship with a narcissist.
Tell me,
because
please.
I think that we've been so much focus on the narcissist. The question is, what if I've just been through this?
Is there a sense of PTS that you're going to face?
A lot of PTS.
Yeah.
You'll see there's confusion, self-doubt, a sense of powerlessness, helplessness, sometimes even hopelessness, anxiety, a lack of not feeling motivated anymore, a sort of sense of like, I can't be bothered with life.
And these are all the symptoms of being in a trauma bond. Or Dr. Peter Salerno calls it the traumatic cognitive dissonance. That's another thing that can happen.
Rumination, regret, something we call euphoric recall. You remember the good parts of the relationship and say, why can't we have that part again? I'm like, well, no, because that part wasn't really real.
It wasn't real. It was like this explosive.
It's people have physical symptoms. They have trouble sleeping because of the rumination.
Yeah.
They might find themselves engaging in less behaviors that are involved, like self-care behaviors, we call them, like things like working out or eating well, or even taking their medications on time. They just almost let themselves go because being in these relationships is just basically like completely being, overwhelmed by them. So people aren't in good shape when they're coming out of these relationships.
Because then they'll start beating themselves up. How could I stay in this? What was I thinking?
Well, that's
I'm an idiot,
the worst part. It's the self-blame and the self-shame. Because the self-blame is, this is my fault. I'm the one who stayed. I should have known. I'm a fool. And then a lot of people go back.
Why?
Right. So why? Because they think let's talk a little bit. I want my whiteboard.
Yes.
I got to use
the whiteboard.
So here we go. So let's talk about the narcissistic relationship cycle. Okay. Step 1 is something called, I'll write it down. I'll lift it up.
Yes.
Love bombing. Okay.
Okay.
Love bombing is that big, seductive, exciting experience that happens early in a relationship. We have a magical connection. Let's have a picnic on the beach. Wild and crazy sex. Texting for 12 hours straight. Good morning, princess. Good night, my darling. Let's take a vacation for our 3rd date. I want you to meet all my friends. I'm so into you. Let's move in after a month. My lease is up. Love bombing. It's exciting. It's intoxicating. It's seductive. And what it does, it's a narcissist ground game. That's how they're able to get you to not notice all the red flags because you're so focused on the 10 dozen roses on your doorstep that the unreal sex you're having, or these amazing, like constantly being these text messages, or going to San Francisco on your 4th date, and you're thinking like, okay, what red flags? I'm having my fairy tale.
Yeah.
The minute the narcissist knows they've got you, when you kind of let down your guard, because some people are like, this seems too good to be true. And then they're like, okay, I love you too. I'm boom. That's the day something called
They got you.
devaluing starts.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Now, devaluing is characterized by invalidation, little digs.
So devaluing starts because the source of supply that they have is no longer working as the positive supply they once were. And when that happens, the narcissist is likely to feel more bored again. They'll get restless. And when they're restless and bored, some of their sadistic side can come out. And they're like, you know what? I want to tear you down. And this is where the quote unquote narcissistic abuse comes in. They'll tear you down, devalue you, belittle you, invalidate you, and just try to control every aspect of you. And this is the devaluing aspect. And they'll still use some intermittent rewards in there too, because they want to keep you on the hook as well. Like they know it can't just be all devalue, or you'll be more likely just to leave. But they'll sprinkle in some good days. And some people make the mistake of confusing some good days for a good relationship But when someone's truly a narcissist, those bad days always circle back around, and that's just the routine. It's going to be the pattern. So don't let the good days confuse you.
Like, oh gosh, my ex-girlfriend could cook. Or,
Oh my gosh.
it's like the digs. It's little, it's subtle. You're like, where did this go? Like, where's this? Because it's not feeling so good. And people in devaluing are confused as heck. They're thinking, how do I get back here? Now they start blaming themselves. Because it was this, now it's this, it must be me.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Now then.
So my friend, Adriana Bucci, she has a good quote, and it's, if you're confused, it's because you're being abused. And I've spoken to her twice now on the channel. Check those out if you haven't already. But that's a good way to remember it. If you're confused, you're being abused. Or at the very least, it's not a good sign.
I just feel like you're going through my life right now. Okay.
We go to something called the discard. Now, the discard is not always a breakup.
Is this where like they won't speak to you for 2 weeks?
It's the silent treatment. It's the it's the deeper level manipulation. It could be infidelity. It could be significant lying. It could be even sometimes even the other person leaves the relationship at this point. Like the not narcissistic person leaves.
Like,
okay?
I'm out.
I'm out. I can't do this. And then comes a phase
Oh my gosh.
called hoovering.
And so, yes, they do offer less and less, and they'll breadcrumb you just to keep you on the hook, as one of the commenters says here too. And it does make people dependent on them, right? They'll use them as a source of, they think they need them. But this is also part of being in the trauma bond too. But that's just another one of the tools, breadcrumbing, giving it just enough to stick around and not leave.
Hoovering is when the narcissist tries to suck you back in. They don't like to lose. And in the majority of cases, once after the discard,
Try to woo you back.
Try to woo you back. Love bombing part 2. Now, love bombing part 2 is never as heavy as love bombing part 1. It's always love bombing light the second time around. But it'll be like,
it's seductive.
Baby, what was I thinking? You're the best thing that ever happened to me. And this could be because they've cheated on you.
Right.
And they say things like, you're so much better. And you know what? People fall for that because that's that triangulation dynamic, that idea, very Oedipal, that you're the favored child, that you're the favored one. And the hoovering is
I'm choosing you. Yeah.
Then in the part of the hoovering is a dynamic called, you're going to love this one, is my guess after the way you've been putting future faking.
Okay.
Future faking is, no, as soon as this deadline is done, we're going to, or I'm going to get therapy, or I know, let's just put it off for another 6 months. For sure, I'm going to do it then. They keep moving the goalposts. And future faking is what keeps people in the game, because
I more associate future faking with telling you that they want all of the same things you do. Oh, I want the white picket fence. I want to get married. I want to have kids. But it's really not what they want. They're doing it to suck you in, to meet the fantasy. What she's calling future faking here, I kind of just consider it more part of the hoovering, where they'll promise to change. They'll promise to do all of the things that you wish they would have done before. They might even say sorry. Doesn't mean they mean it, but they might say it. Or they might promise not to cheat. They'll promise to quit drinking. They'll promise to stop with the porn. But it's really just a way to try to regain control of you. So I consider that part of the hoovering / coercive control.
They're promising the thing you want. 6 months. We're going to have kids. We're going to have kids. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like, I just need to get my career established. And now you're 50 and you don't have kids.
Right.
Or we're going to, we're going to definitely move closer to your parents. I know we had talked about moving back there. And I know you said there's some better opportunities for you. You're waiting. Or I'm going to get into therapy. I'm going to work on these anger issues. And then if you push it, God, you know what? You're really impatient. You're like, you are not a nice person.
Can't you see what I'm going through in my life and I need time?
Yep. And that's the cycle of every narcissistic relationship. Not everybody gets hoovered, okay? Sometimes the narcissist moves into something else and then they're done. And so people sometimes feel bad if they're not hoovered. They're like, oh, what's wrong with me? It doesn't always happen, and consider yourself lucky. I always say the lucky are not hoovered, because then it goes back to, the cycle goes again and again and again.
So what is hoovering again?
Hoovering is when they try to woo you back in, suck you back in.
They bring you back in.
Lewis is taking notes. But I agree that the love bombing, devalue, discard, hoover cycle, most people I do think get hoovered. Most do, because they always want supply and they'll often circle back around. Sometimes it takes years, might even be decades, but often they do. Is it possible that they don't? Of course it's possible, but many times it absolutely happens.
And they'll do that if, let's say, they're the one who left you, okay? And you finally start getting your life in order. And maybe you're dating someone else and they find out that's when they want you back. They just want to mess your stuff up. Or you're in a good place. Like you got a job they don't want you happy. They don't like losing. And they don't like the idea of anyone else winning. It's all about domination.
Oh my gosh.
So I tell people, like, maybe you could get a good trip to San Francisco and a couple of flowers and get out.
And then get out,
like before you get in too deep.
But if that happens without
and that's not really a good suggestion there by Dr. Ramani. If you think that's love bombing, probably not the best to even engage it at that point.
Give you like a month or 6 weeks or 2 months of love bombing on you. And then you're like, you know what?
They're going to get mad.
I'm not in the right place. This isn't for me. Like, it's not you, it's me. I'm not ready. They're going to get mad.
They're going to get mad.
So either way, once you go on the first weekend love bomb extravaganza, you're
kind of sunk. Yeah, because they actually
get out there.
They want to get out.
You almost the first weekend.
You want to get out. Listen, here's an interesting tell on narcissistic people, and it applies more in LA than in a place like New York. They drive really badly. They drive dangerously. They cut people off and they come up on their bumpers and they cut people off on the freeway.
Gosh.
And that's actually been documented in research.
And this is very true. It's a hidden form of abuse where often a narcissistic guy, but not always, it can be a narcissistic woman too. They'll drive extremely recklessly and dangerously while you're in the car to scare you and to intimidate you. And usually they'll do this because they want you to comply. Maybe you told them no. And to punish you, they'll drive really recklessly or erratically. And it's a punishment. And they're saying, you told me no, you didn't comply, you didn't do what I wanted you to do. So now I'm going to scare you. I'm going to push the envelope here. Something to pay attention to. Also, when you're in the car with them, you're trapped. And so a lot of the worst abuse can occur in the car because you're trapped, especially if it's a road trip. You're trapped in the car with them. There is no escape, especially if you're far from home.
Narcissist is a bad driver.
Bad driver. Dangerous driver. Not bad. Not like dumb driver. Fast, cut people off, honk, road ragey driver.
I have this, I don't know if I want to call it a formula, but just some steps that I've been developing through my own
why did he
journey
splice
and reflection of
stupid? I don't know why he spliced these in here like this. Stupid. If I wanted to go over that interview, we'd go over that one from the top.
So that they have completely not only given up on their reality, they've given up on themselves. So let me say that in a little bit more of a clear way. Gaslighting is a grooming process. It's not a one-off, right? So let's say a day like today, we'd set up our shoot and everything. And I were to say, and we had our time, we were going to meet the date. And I said, you never said we were meeting on that day. And you'd be like, what? And then you go back to your email and say, no, it's right there, right? But for a minute, you might have doubted yourself. I don't have that much power to gaslight you because we don't really know each other. Maybe you trust me a little, but it would be enough to throw you off for a minute. Say, did I not send that email right? And you catch yourself, okay? The reason it's called a grooming process is it happens over and over again. I never said that. I never did that. You're being too sensitive. Stop making such a big deal about that. You really aren't committed to this relationship. And they keep saying things to you that are not your reality. So what do people do when they're gaslighted initially? They defend themselves. No, you did. You really did. Like you said that. Or I'm not being too sensitive. And now you're getting more and more worked up, right?
Yeah.
And this is the gaslighting as a process that Dr. Salerno and I have talked about, where it's a process of getting you to doubt and question your own perception of reality. And eventually You might even begin to question your sanity, and you are unsubscribing from your perception of reality while subscribing to the narcissist's distorted perception of reality. That is the gaslighting process. Now, there are debates. Can one phrase be gaslighting? Like someone cuts in front of you in line, and they say, and you say to them, "You cut in front of me in line." And they say, "No, I didn't." Is that gaslighting or is that lying? I would say that's more lying, more than likely. But again, there is a difference between gaslighting and lying.
And they'll say things to you like, "Oh, yikes, somebody's a little bit crazy. Like, have you seen a therapist?" So now what are they doing? Not only have they doubted your reality and you're a little off balance, then boom, they close it by saying there's something wrong with you.
Oh, man.
And you start believing it.
Oh, wow.
Many people are gaslighted. Will start wondering, maybe I'm the narcissist. Maybe I have a mental illness. Maybe I need to get help. There's something wrong with me. And at that point, the gaslighter fully controls this person.
Oh my gosh.
And why does that happen? Because the narcissist or whoever's gaslighting is saying things like, you need help, you need therapy, you're crazy, or what else will they say? Or they'll just accuse you of what they're guilty of themselves a lot of times. And they just say you're out of control over the smallest things. You say no, oh, that means you're out of control, or you're controlling. Or you have a boundary, oh, you're extremely selfish. And when they exaggerate things like that and distort them, it can confuse people. It confuses them. And that's one of the things that contributes to the trauma bond. And then people subscribe to the narcissist's distorted perception of reality. And that's when the trouble is. That's the trouble, because now you're in that trauma bond and you are confused and you don't know up from down, left from right. A terrible situation to be. And on a side note, this is random, but I just thought of it for some reason. Dr. Cocciola, who I've interviewed before, she reached out to me and said that our friend, who's not our friend, Sadia Khan, is speaking at some sort of coercive control event. And I was like, what? She is speaking at that? The queen of coercive control herself? It's like, you kidding me? I tried to look it up, but I didn't see it. But if you can look that up for me out there, we'll see if we can do something about that, because that's outrageous. If she's going to be there, that is outrageous.
The process. And so, but initially the person who's being gaslighted has some level of trust in the gaslighter. Maybe they're in a new relationship together. Maybe this is a family member. Maybe it's a boss or a respected colleague. You got to have a little of that from the jump. There has to be some skin in the game for someone to be able to gaslight someone. Then they're groomed. Now, let's say the first time someone gaslights you, say, no, here's the email. This is the time you said we're meeting, and don't ever do that to me again. The gaslighter's probably going to move on to a new target.
They'll stop with you.
Yeah, so they'll say like, this is not a fertile target. I'm going to move on to another one, right? But so early on, when a person says you're being too sensitive, say, no, that's my emotion. Don't you dare play judge and jury on my emotions.
Oh.
I'm sad right now. I'm going to stick with that.
That's a good one.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's a good one.
Right? So, and then the gaslighter will probably lose interest, but they'll always get their last dig in. They'll say, she's just a really difficult person. So they'll still have to get their parting shot and say, I'll wear that as a badge of honor. But just look how solid you have to be in yourself and understand gaslighting. In fact, I'm doing a gaslighting seminar on Saturday, literally 3 hours, all gaslighting, because that's how much people are confused by this. It happens at work. It happens in families. It happens in intimate relationships. Yeah. It happens from the world at large. Like, no, everyone can, the playing field's equal. And then the people are like, it can't be equal because I can't catch up.
So the first time you feel like someone's gaslighting you, what should you say without them saying, because I feel like this happened to me in a previous relationship where I'd be like, no, I never said that. And then it was like, they bring up 3 other things that were unrelated to try to confuse.
And so this is a good question. What do you do when someone's trying to gaslight you? What you don't do is jade, justify, argue, defend, or explain. And it's tough because you don't always know what you're dealing with right away. And this can still happen to me in comment sections where I'll try to talk to people. And then before I know it, I sense that narc energy. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. It's the antagonistic, condescending, belittling, twisting and distorting. acting superior. And the only thing left to do is to disengage. Disengage. No more responses, because they're not going to agree with you. That's the thing I think that makes people the most upset and infuriated, is they want the narcissist to validate their perception of reality. They want them to agree. But that's just what is not going to happen. They are not going to agree. They're not going to concede. They are not going to give up. They will go around and around and around and around indefinitely. Why do they do this? Because it gives them enjoyment. They like that. It makes them feel powerful and superior. They have no problems doing that. A lot of times they'll do that to blow off steam, or they'll do that to regulate themselves. This is something I've literally heard them say. It's not even a fake. And I saw it in action. It absolutely happened. But they'll pick fights with people. They'll pick fights with people because it's a way to calm themselves down. That's what's going on inside of them. So when that's the case, are those the people really that are full of insecurity, inadequacies, and shame? Or is there something a little more dark going on there? And I would say, actually, it sounds a little more dark to me, is what I would say.
And be like, well, you this, and I'll be like, just focus on the one thing we're talking about. And so I have to go to, go around all these other things and talk about them, where I forget what we were talking about in the first place.
That's gaslighting. That deflection. It's very exhausting.
It's like, let's just focus on this thing.
So a great example of what gaslighting thing that people will do is they will say something like, in a relationship, and, I'm really uncomfortable with how much time you've been spending with that person. And there's been a lot of communication between the two of you. Like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to me. It feels shady. It feels like a boundary violation. Like, this isn't okay. They'll hit back with, let's go back to when you were in college and you're like, wait, and then you know what I tell people? Have a whiteboard, say, okay, I'm going to table that. We'll get to that. Let's write that down. I don't want us to not talk about it.
Well,
let's go back to the original issue.
So keep going back to the original
thing. Go back to the original issue.
Until they have a discussion and resolve.
They'll get mad.
And they won't discuss.
They won't discuss.
So how do you find resolve?
You don't find resolve.
In these relationships.
There's no resolve. There is no closure. And that's the radical acceptance.
Correct. There is no closure in these relationships. I agree with Dr. Ramani. The way to get closure is to accept there will be no closure. And we give ourselves the closure. How do we do that? By accepting they're a narcissist. Accept they're a narcissist, and no matter what you did, you weren't going to win. No matter what you did, they were going to find a way to have a problem with it. When you truly accept that and understand, you were going to be miserable with them. They were not going to collaborate. They were not going to change. They were going to continue abusing you, devaluing you, insulting you, gaslighting you. That's how it would continue. That cycle of abuse can go on indefinitely. The love bombing, devaluing, discarding, hoovering. That cycle can be never ending. So the closure is understanding it's not going to change. They're not going to change. It's up to me to do something different. And I can't wait for them to give me closure, because they like to keep things open-ended, because when they leave it open-ended, they think it's going to be easier for them to come back, because they think, well, it's going to be harder for them to get over me if I don't give them closure. And partially what it is for the narcissist is a lot of times they just have another source of supply, and they want that source of supply, and they'll leave you maybe for that, but they want the freedom to be able to come back later in case they get bored of the new supply, or something doesn't work out with the new supply. They want the ability to come back. So those are all the reasons they don't like to give closure. But we have to give closure to ourselves. And once they leave, closure is also slamming the door shut behind them. Block them on everything. To not block them, to not slam that door shut, is leaving the door open. You're leaving channels of communication open, and that is a small reservation. It's a reservation, as they would say in a 12-step program. You have a reservation to use again. In this case, it's a reservation to let the narcissist back into your life. When you're truly done and you truly have accepted they're a narcissist, they're not going to change, and you're truly done with it, you block, go no contact. The end. I make it sound simple, but it's certainly not simple. A lot of times it can take people up to 7 times on average to leave. It doesn't have to, but That is often how long it takes. But this is how, ultimately, this is what we should be striving for, to do this. I make it sound simple, like I said, but I fully acknowledge it's not as simple as I make it sound.
So you just got to accept this person isn't going to have these conversations. This person's not going to have rationality for certain things. It's going to be their way or the highway.
Correct.
And they won't be flexible.
Nope.
And you've either got to live with it and accept it for a certain period of time, or you can choose to move on.
Right.
But
And
being in an argument is only going to make
pointless.
your life worse.
Correct. And you might say, like, that seems lonely. Yeah. And so I have worked with people who've stayed in long-term narcissistic relationships, who have done everything from get very involved in like a religious community, church community, something like that, to do a lot of things with their friends, really build friendships.
Unless the narcissist tries to control them hanging out with their friends.
If you have a controlling narcissist, none of this will work.
You're
Like malignant narcissist, it won't work. But if you can build out friendships, if you can build out collegial relationships, if you're working, church community, some people do this in online communities if they're not able to easily get out of the house and have friendships that way, develop hobbies they care deeply about, a garden, building something, whatever their groove is, music, something like that. I've known people to have lovers, you know, to say like, my body hasn't been touched in 15 years. And so they'll do that. And they'll say, I felt a little guilty, but they're having sex with other people. I haven't been touched. And they're like, you know, I know I'm not, and they said like, I know I'm not very attractive, but they found, everyone's got someone, everyone finds someone and they find their someone. And so I've heard it all. I've heard people do all kinds of things, finding their way to get that support on the, when they're not being, when they have to stay. Because that's where you get ungaslighted, right? Person saying, no, that's not okay, or this person's conduct isn't okay. But I think where most people destroy themselves is they're like a moth to flame. They're like, I can fix this. And I'm telling you here, you can't.
Stop trying to fix it.
Stop trying to fix it.
So she says ungaslight. I call it unsubscribing from the narcissist distorted version of reality. That is learning to trust ourselves again. Trust our gut. Trust what we think about things. Trust our own perception of reality. And that takes time. And then that's where therapists or coaches like me can come in, because we can help you to start trusting yourself again and trusting what you see, trusting what you feel. Because when you're with a narcissist, they'll tell you your feelings are wrong, your boundaries are wrong, everything you do is wrong, or there's something wrong with it. And you're always guilty of something.
This is not going to work.
That was probably my challenge, is I wanted to fix.
Which again, your athletic background, it makes sense. I mean, there are people who have had a track record of being able to get things done. They're the ones who are very vulnerable to staying in these relationships too long.
I think I was attracted to it, and then then wanted to stay in it. And then I was just like, it just becomes exhausting when it's a full energy on someone else, as opposed to a combination of let's work together on a shared vision towards our relationship, towards life, not all the energy in one place.
Correct. And it is very draining. And I think a lot of people do feel like, you know, a good relationship is me doing everything they ask or catering to them. No,
being
a relationship is being unselfish. No, it's about give and take. I'm not saying transactional give and take. It's that you feel supported enough that when they say, hey, do you mind going to this dinner for work? And you're like, of course I'll go to that dinner for work, because you care about them. And even if you both think it's ridiculous, you're kind of giggling at each other, or, you know, having fun with it, is that you understand that there's a give and take, and you give graciously and the other person gives graciously. This isn't just about, you know, grinding your teeth and, you know, being irritated you have to go, but really that giving with grace. But I'll be frank with you, it really comes down though to finding somebody who has a good personality. And I keep using this word agreeableness, right?
Being agreeable.
So, being agreeable. And that's actually a personality style.
So how do you know when someone's agreeable?
So what you want is compatibility plus good character. It doesn't always mean agreeable, because agreeable people can have their own issues too, honestly. They're the people that can struggle with people pleasing. They're the people that abandon themselves to their own detriment, which is not good. But what you want is someone who's moved through that. Maybe they used to struggle with being too agreeable or people pleasing, but now you're compatible with them and they have good character. Two very important things.
All those things I talked about, flexibility and warmth and kindness.
Just the time, it's just seeing it over time and seeing their words for their actions.
Agreeable men make less money.
Agreeable men make less money.
The research has shown that pretty clearly. Bless their hearts. And so for everyone out there who wants somebody who's got the money and the stuff, the probability that that person's going to be agreeable is a lot lower.
So you just need to find a unicorn, someone who's agreeable and who has money.
I have not.
You've never seen that?
I know. Yes, I have. I can think of one person off the top of my head.
Okay.
Billionaire. Most agreeable man in the world.
Yeah.
Sweetest,
Kind,
married
humble,
to a raging narcissist. You can't.
Oh, man.
He's a darling.
Oh,
Darling
man. But just gets walked all over in his relationships.
Oh my God, beyond. Walked all over.
And that can happen. I bet you there's some athletes or musicians, they might be a little more agreeable. Probably even more so musicians that might have some money. But a lot of agreeable people, they do wind up with narcissists because they wind up with like the opposite of themselves. Other times, though, like we said earlier, there's definitely two narcissistic people in relationships sometimes too. They have a narc off, as I call it, and then a narcissist and a borderline. Borderlines are not always agreeable, although they sometimes can be, but not always.
In his business, he can go and have...
Killed it.
He can be assertive and
I've met a few agreeable rich folks. I mean, really, and we're not just rich, like really good at what they do. They unicorns, like they definitely. But what was interesting, with a couple of these folks, agreeable, very wealthy, at the end of their career, they got taken down. They got like people in the company. They were a soft target.
They were the vulnerable target. So we're going to make him the scapegoat, and we're going to take the equity from them, or they're going to be the one to blame.
Yeah, they did. They got a group of
because they weren't willing to fight for what they.
Well, they weren't willing to be disagreeable.
They just wanted to keep the peace at all costs,
because they were collaborative people. They actually thought they were bringing up the next generation.
It's interesting because, man, over the last decade, I really started doing a lot of healing work when I turned 30. I've talked about this many times on my show. That I was sexually abused when I was 5 by a man that I didn't know, and it definitely shaped a part of me for my life until I started to heal that process and really go through a healing journey of, the shame that I felt for so long, the guilt, the insecurity, the not feeling enough or not feeling lovable, all these different things, and to kind of reshaping the story, the narrative, and finding the value in the process and in the pain, I guess, and really finding the value from 25 years of holding it in and channeling it, saying, how can I be of service at a greater level? How can I use this to support other men who have gone through sexual abuse? And that's why I wrote the book, The Masculine. Yeah, 1 in 6 men have been sexually abused, 1 in 4 women, obviously. And what I always tell people is that, men just don't talk about it, and then they hold it in, and then they become angry or reactive or rageful or dismissive or whatever it is. They put a mask on, and that shame causes that mask. At least it did for me and a lot of men that I've talked to. So for many years, I had to learn how to kind of unwind and heal that process, and it's been a beautiful journey of healing where I can, because I used to be very competitive. It was like I had to win at all costs. And now I'm like, well, that didn't work for me. It got me results, but it left me feeling empty and alone and unfulfilled. And I didn't have peace because I always needed to win. Then I started transitioning, and when I hit 30, I just want to collaborate. And I just want to support others and work together. And it feels a lot more peaceful inside and fulfilling.
What do you think the function was of trying to win?
Oh, to get love, be accepted. To get love and be accepted.
I was going to say maybe to be safe.
Yeah,
too.
to get love, to be accepted, to feel like I was, to fit in, because I didn't feel like I had any friends growing up.
Right. I don't even know if I buy that per se. I think a lot of times the need to win is because you want to feel better than, you want to feel superior. Like, to me, that's a lot of what being competitive is all about.
So it was like, well, if I win, people recognize me and they like me.
Right.
And I'm desirable.
Right.
If I lose, then who wants to be, around me?
Yeah, and then the shame gets activated. But it's also safety. I mean, that's why that idea, if I win, I'm safe. That's the ultimate get for any human.
I'm not
being,
alone.
To be safe. I'm not alone. If I'm accepted, I'm safe. If I'm loved, I'm safe.
And it's funny when I moved into, and Jay Shetty talks about this a lot. When I talk with Jay about this, he's like, just being in collaboration is the key. And I was like, I know that's what I feel like for the last 8 years, because you're safe when you're still collaborating. You're still with people. You're helping
Gotta watch out for that Jay Shetty, by the way. I've heard some things about him.
each other accelerate together.
Right, but there's a fear, and I think one of the big impediments to collaboration is the sense that others will leave you behind. So if you become an island unto yourself, you feel safer, right? So I think that's often a blockade. And then
I'm at the top of the mountain, everyone else is down.
Yes, if they leave you, it's not the collaboration that's the issue, it's the potential for abandonment.
Interesting. Like if I'm in this business, like the billionaire friend, I'm at the top, but then I collaborate with others, but then they take it all and they leave me behind.
They took it all away. I mean, this was somebody, and that man, that agreeable billionaire, was collaborative from the day one of his career.
So how do you stay collaborative and live in abundance and want others to win around you, but also not get taken advantage of?
It's not easy. It's with the 1 in 5 number I'm giving you. It's not easy.
It's all about balance, baby. Respecting yourself, but also respecting others.
I mean, it is, what is the best offense is a good defense. You better have a good defense.
Yeah. Get your contracts in order, get everything.
Contracts in order, document. Don't put your head in the sand. I mean, the reason narcissism has proliferated the way it has is enabling. People keep giving it a free pass. Oh, come on now. Don't hate the player, hate the game. It's not how that works, right?
It's a player.
And so it's a player. No. So like we have all this kind of culture around, and in some ways people want to see the best example I can give is that people hate the idea. When we see a magician do a trick, we know they didn't do magic. We know they had something up their sleeve, but we want to believe it's magic because that makes the world seem more interesting. With narcissists, we want to believe in the magic.
We want
to believe that they're going to be, we want to believe that this charismatic person is real. That someone this larger than life is larger than life, rather than an ordinary person who just has ordinary things and could fall, and we want superheroes. That's why we've always written myths as a species. But the myths should remain stories, not the person who's trying to scream at you from the other cubicle.
I'm ready. We wish every man could learn to develop more of in society.
Being vulnerable with emotion, to share.
He's trying to milk the stupid watch time. That's why he spliced these in. Ridiculous. Doesn't he know that I'm trying to break this down?
My life exceeds anything that she would have allowed herself to think. There's a book from the 1970s by a guy named Christopher Lasch called The Culture of Narcissism. And in that book, he really gets, and this is the 70s, okay? And he really gets into issues like materialism and also the falling apart of American community structures and family structures. And so he pins this sort of pathological narcissism and selfishness to the sort of the erosion of those structures. But I think that misses something. Then it was kind of quiet. Like, this has always been a quiet area, interestingly, in mental health. And then reality TV happened. Social media happened.
We had to witness it all.
Yeah. And we had to witness it all. Kids are growing up with it now.
Political dramas and fights and
lots of, and materialism was on the rise. So when we look at materialism, social media, and reality TV, that kind of triple threat where everything was about shameless self-promotion. Everything was about validation seeking. Look at me. No, look at me. No, look at me. My life's better than yours. And I'll never forget the day, actually. I was, someone told me about social media. It was in that space between MySpace and Facebook.
Yeah.
And I had small children at the time. And I think I was up late and somebody said, you got to look at this thing called Facebook, right? And I'm like, I don't know what this is. And so at the time I was even married, so I really no social life. And I look at it and it's that moment, that penny drop moment where I could feel that dread in my stomach, as though like a ghost appeared in the door. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this narcissism thing is about to blow up.
Wow.
Because before that, think about it. If you were a narcissist and you needed to get validation, you actually had to get up and get out of the house, right? Like no one was you had to get up, kind of get ready, go to work. A lot of narcissists got their validation at work. especially men in that era.
Mhm.
And then other people like would get it by like going to social events, going to parties, maybe succeeding at something, but it was a different game.
Going to the gym, maybe, or something.
Maybe going to the gym, but now all of it, excelling at something visible like sports or performing or like singing or something like that. But then I was like, oh, hell no. You're telling me that people are going to be able to get validation just sitting at home. And I thought this narcissism thing's going to blow up. That was 2008 when I had that revelation.
Wow.
So it's not that the narcissism thing is blowing up. It's just giving narcissists that are already in existence an avenue to get more narcissistic supply. That's what social media is. It's a stage for them to get narcissistic supply, attention, admiration, and acknowledgement. And now you can turn it into a career. And now you can get status and money out of it. So again, it's rewarding people for behaving narcissistically, and it's giving the people that are already narcissists a platform to demonstrate and to let it out. So I don't think that's creating more, I would say. And also, but it's also created the awareness of narcissism and toxic behaviors. Before social media, there really wasn't much awareness of this, honestly, unless you went out of your way to learn it in school or to read books about it. I think that's one of the big things that people don't take into consideration about social media is all of the content and information that you were just getting in front of your face, especially on Facebook and Instagram, because you just see what you see when you scroll. A lot of times on YouTube, people like search for things, so it's a little bit different. But just the fact that so many people are getting shown these things, that's a night and day different thing. Go back as early as 1998, 27 years ago now, it was not that way at all. Like you just didn't learn. You didn't learn about narcissism. They just called them assholes back then. And so there was all these people that couldn't put a finger on it. Like, what the hell is wrong with this person? And people being gaslit, people in trauma bonds. And then you'll see the narcissistic family dynamics, narcissistic mother, enabler father, narcissistic father, enabler mother, the golden child, a scapegoat, maybe a black sheep, a lost child, invisible child, clown, mascot. People just didn't know. They didn't know. They knew some of it with alcoholics. That was the closest thing. Addicts and alcoholics, those provided a framework to learn about dysfunctional family systems. But a lot of it wasn't really covered by narcissism. They took it under the addiction umbrella. Oh, they're alcoholics. They're addicts. They didn't. And sometimes when people call themselves an addict and go to those 12-step programs, yeah, they work on some of the underlying things. But of course, narcissists, often they won't do that, of course. Even if they quit drinking, they can still be an asshole while sober. Don't forget that.
I started telling people, people said like, "Oh, honey, you're running off in your head. Get some sleep. Like you're acting crazy." And I said, "No, this is going to blow up." And then it blew up. And at around that time, we're starting to see the beginnings of reality TV shows like, Survivor and things like that. I'm like, this is interesting. And then we'd start seeing more and more of the attention-seeking reality TV, housewife type shows and all of that. The Bachelor. And I thought, oh, no. And then the political winds changed and the word came into popular use. So imagine going from something that you studied. Only you studied.
And like no one cared about it.
Nobody cared about it.
And then all of a sudden it's mainstream.
And then the world changed and it became mainstream. Exactly. But another thing that was happening too was this, I was studying it in my research. I had been funded by the National Institutes of Health to look at personality issues because I was working with folks who were working in community clinics, and they would come back from the community clinics back to the main lab at the university and they would look frazzled and I'll say, "Hey, what's up?" And they'll say, "Some of these patients, they're so terrible and they're ruining everyone's lives." And what we came to find out was that there were some patients who come in entitled and grumpy and take it out on the staff. And I thought, that's interesting. These people are not only burning out the staff so they can't give good health care to other people, they themselves, everyone's dreading seeing them. So they're not getting good health care. And then a few years later, I was noticing a pattern in my patients over and over again. It's like they were all talking about the same relationship. I thought, this is interesting. Nobody ever taught these people about narcissism because this is clearly what was happening in their relationships. And I'm not kidding you. Once they got educated on these patterns, they were making changes like this. Some were getting divorced, some were splitting up, some were saying, I'm going to set boundaries.
Wow.
I mean, it was insta change. And they said, we were in couples therapy for 5 years, and always about marriage is hard. You got to communicate. I'm like, communicating with a narcissist is, I don't know, it's like, it's impossible. It's screaming into an abyss. Like, there's no point.
Is there hope for people in marriages, if they're in a relationship with a narcissist, to actually heal the relationship and improve it? Or is it just going to be hard the rest of your life?
Go.
No. Like I always say, unless they do the 5 elements of change, have the humility to admit they have a problem, be honest about what the problem is, have the willingness to change, put in the footwork to change, and then have the resilience to keep on trying even when it gets hard. Unless those 5 things happen, don't even think about it. The best that you could hope for is just a relationship where, like, you just comply. You comply. You never assert yourself. Those are the relationships that it appears like work, but it's not really what I would consider a working relationship. I would consider that one person's in control and the other person's just adhering. That's not really the kind of relationship I would want. But let's see what Dr. Ramani says.
Going on a probability basis, the answer is no. Wow. I think it's going to be hard always. Are there unicorns out there? Sure. But the amount of commitment you'd need on the part of the person who's narcissistic, I mean, we're talking about daily commitment.
On the person who is a narcissist.
The person who's narcissistic has to get into therapy multiple times a week. They have to be willing to have humility. They have to be willing to be mindful. They have to be willing to regulate themselves. That's a long list of things they need to be willing to do. They can't be impulsive. They can't say whatever's on their mind. It's fascinating because I have worked with, I'd say 25% of the clients I've worked with in my clinical practice for a long time now, have been narcissistic.
Why would they even come to work with you if they're narcissistic?
Because something's going wrong in their lives. Their marriage is blowing up. They're having some sort of public shaming. Their career isn't going well.
They have
lawsuit. They feel
This is an important point. A lot of people think narcissists will never go to therapy. They'll never go to treatment. And that's not quite true. They will go because of an ultimatum. They'll go because someone else they think is the problem. They'll go because there's a catastrophe. They'll go for an addiction. They'll go for depression. They'll go for any number of things. But very rarely is it that they think they are the problem. But they will go, and they will be put in front of therapeutic communities. So it's wrong when people say narcissists are never going to therapy. In fact, sometimes they'll push for couples therapy. And that's one of the reasons why I advise against it. Don't go to couples counseling with a narcissist. What you should do, if you suspect you're in a toxic relationship, go to one-on-one counseling and then be honest about what's going on in the relationship, and preferably go to somebody that has personal experience with narcissists, and so they understand it. And then that person should be able to tell you, okay, this is what's going on. This is probably what you should do. And I won't always tell people what to do, but I can make suggestions in some cases. And again, it's not going to be a way to work it out because you can't change them. You can't change them. Now, some people are forced into bad situations because of co-parenting, and they have to do what they have to do in the meantime. Yeah, that happens.
The world is against them. And in this victimized stance, they roll up to therapy, in some ways wanting to complain, right? Every so often they're given an ultimatum, maybe by a workplace or by a spouse or someone. Maybe they get caught in an affair, and then they're told that wife or husband or partner or spouse will say, we're not staying together unless you get therapy. Which is a fool's errand, because if someone else is telling them to do it, even if they do it on their own, there usually isn't much personality. Personality doesn't really change.
Personality doesn't change unless you're like doing therapy every week and holding yourself accountable. And even then,
listen, I have a certain personality. I got it tested when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It hasn't changed. I'm really? I'm a little bit more confident now. That's not my personality. That's just time served.
Right. It's like I put in more reps.
Yes. I put in more reps. So I'm like, now I know I can do this thing. Right. But it's not that I was born agreeable. I grew up agreeable. I was an agreeable adult. I'm an agreeable person. That's just who I am.
When is our personality shaped?
Well, there's 2 pieces of personality. We're born, the sort of the genetic part of personality, if you will, it's called our temperament.
Our temperament.
Our
So you're
temperament.
born and you're either a crier or not a crier, or you're.
I can make it ultra simple.
Yes.
Like, you know, there's some kids out there who have really difficult temperaments. They're born into the world difficult. You talk to a parent, they're kids who are difficult to soothe. They're to make them stop crying, to help them sleep. As time goes on, they're just difficult kids. They don't play as nice. They have.
And so this is her basically talking about the genetic component of temperament, the genetic component of personality, the DNA. So let's see what else she says about it, because I think this is absolutely a big part. And if you talk to a lot of adults of someone that's had a narcissistic kid, they'll tell you their kid was difficult almost from birth. So it wasn't something they developed. It's like, no, this is how they were born. They were born with this difficult temperament. But let's see what Dr. Ramani says.
Low frustration tolerance. They're difficult with their siblings. They're punchy, fighty. They get to school. They can't sit still. They're always getting into trouble. And none of the adults like them. So these kids with these difficult temperaments actually have this relationship with the world that's pretty unpleasant. Everyone's like, sit down, stop that, don't do that. And there's even this vibe these kids get. Like, nobody really wants to spend time with them, right? Because they're a real handful.
Is it their fault? I mean, they can't really change that when you're 5.
No, you can't. But so the difficult temperament's a risk factor for the adult narcissistic personality. Now, not everybody with a difficult temperament goes on to become narcissistic. So it's not a slam dunk, but it's definitely, when we tell that story backwards, every narcissistic client I've ever worked with, without exception, had a difficult temperament as a child. So that either every so often I'd get.
All right, so that's the argument for the genetic component right there. Round of applause for Dr. Ramani coming around. But let's see what she says. I don't want to speak too soon.
Lucky we'd phone the parent during therapy and say, can we talk about this? Sometimes they'd go ask the parent, and the parent would come clean on that and say, yeah, you were a real, because you had siblings, right? So they'd compare them to siblings. Some siblings had this great, easy temperament. It's not quite, so temperament is that biological part of our personality. It's how you might see your personality in either one of your parents or in a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle. You'll say, wow, I have such a similar personality to them. That's the genetics of it.
And the other?
All the rest of it is shaped by the world.
Environment,
it's
parents, society.
Maybe I spoke too soon. Let's see what they said.
How you were treated and what you're exposed to.
Exactly.
So if you had let's say a challenging temperament growing up, is there hope for you to, I guess, shift your personality into a different style with environment?
I think so. I think a couple of things have to happen. That kid needs to be met where they're at. So let's say you have a boy with a difficult temperament who's just energy, and you get them into athletics, or you get them into something where they're using their hands, whatever that might be, building things or something like that. And you really are with them. Instead of saying, you're being so bad, you're so difficult, like, wow, look at that rocket you built, or like, oh my gosh, you ran 10 miles today, or you threw the ball, or like, this is great. Like, let's do it together. And they have a parent who wants to maybe do those things with them. I've heard of this is where it's interesting. I hear a lot of these stories, if not in athletics, but people who do things like climb mountains, that kind of thing. And sometimes the parents got them into these things because the kid was just a bolus of energy.
So let me rewind here for a second. So she's basically saying, you can have a difficult temperament because of your genes, but you can't become a narcissist because of your genes. You need the environment to activate it, is what she is saying. And that's something that I don't agree with. I don't think the environment needs to activate it. I think she was right when she said that temperament is genetic and narcissists were difficult from a young age. That seems to prove the genetic aspect to me. But then she kind of went off to the side there and said, no, the rest of it's the environment. To which I will say the environment contributes. Trauma doesn't help, but I don't think that's what's activating it. I don't think you need that abuse, neglect, or putting on a pedestal, being the golden child, coddling. I don't think you need that. I think the majority is that DNA. Dr. Robert Plomin says over 50% for personality disorders is that. But in terms of meeting a kid that you think is narcissistic where they are, that's the CPR method that I was talking about with Dr. Keith Campbell, which, again, if they have that temperament, they have that genetic piece, what are you going to do? Are you just going to give up? No, I don't suggest you give up. So you try to work with what you got. The CPR method is compassion, passion, responsibility. And at that point, As Dr. George Simon would say, one of the most important things to do is to teach them character. Because you can have a narcissistic operating system, but at the very least, if you try to act with character and teach them some morals and values, maybe the damage done will be reduced. Of course, not always. Of course, they'll still do what they do a lot of times. And this requires a parent to even have understanding of this anyway. But knowing what we know about temperament and personality and the genetic aspect, this is going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. There's a lot of people I know that have a narcissistic baby dad or baby mom. And so there's a percentage chance that their kids will have that genetic component. And so what do? You don't just give up. You don't just give up and say, whoops, this person's going to be a demon from hell. I'm going to throw my hands in the air and wash my hands of it. Nah, I don't suggest doing that. So you do the CPR method. You try to work with their temperament, work with it, try to build their character, build their integrity. Teach them at the very least cognitive empathy. Like, oh, before you act, do you think about how it's going to affect someone else? Do you think how it's going to make someone else feel? You can do this, I think. You can teach cognitive empathy. Now, they're not going to feel it, right? If you have that impairment of empathy, I don't think you're going to feel the feeling of empathy, but cognitive empathy is a different thing.
And then the parents would really encourage them, might even go with them, might go hiking with them or whatever. So I do think if that child feels loved, safe, protected, attached, they feel like they have a safe base to return to, which is usually their primary caregiver.
They can relax more into it.
And they have success experiences, right? So maybe they're not the best kid in school, but they're really, like, they feel loved no matter what, whether they can read or not, whether they can do math or not, they're loved. And that they have these other outlets.
That's cool.
And that the school is supporting them and meeting them. How many kids do you know who have that things line up like that? I can count on one hand the number of kids I know who got that lineup.
Right. I mean, who had like all the support,
All the
love,
support,
and we love you no matter what. And it's very challenging. It's interesting because I interviewed Kobe Bryant before he passed, obviously, and he said his father, one summer when he was playing basketball, I think he was 13, he said he didn't score 1 point the whole summer in like this summer competition league. And he said, my father told me, no matter what, I'm going to love you. Whether you score 0 points or you're the highest scorer, I'm going to love you no matter what you do. No matter how good or how bad you are, I love you no matter what. And he said that conversation with his dad gave him the confidence to say, I'm going to go out and go for it. No matter what happens, I'm loved, is the way he explained it. And I thought that was interesting. But not a lot of people have had like the school support and parent support and sibling support and like the encouragement. But it sounds like you can't change a personality, but you can channel a personality into other activities to support their growth. Is that right?
So every human being has the same sort of essential ingredients that they need in terms of wanting, a safe base, a safe place of attachment, a sense of being loved no matter what. Yeah, their behavior could be called out. Like, no, you cannot tear up the living room. That behavior is not okay. I love you. I love you whether you get the 13 points or the no points. Just
You're
like
still grounded, but I love you.
You're still grounded. I love you. And so that sort of consistency and safety. But it was interesting. I was just reading a research paper from 2014, and in this paper they were talking about how do you make a narcissistic adult out of a kid. One thing we're seeing a little bit right now is this problem of children being overvalued for nothing.
Celebrated for.
That's just not how it happens to me. This is not how it happens. The DNA is the biggest component. The genetics is the biggest component. The overvaluing can build someone an ego. You can maybe develop some narcissistic behaviors, but that's different. To me, that is different than a full-blown narcissistic operating system. I think that narcissistic operating system is there or it's not. If you don't have the narcissistic operating system, you can develop toxic behaviors for sure. You can even develop narcissistic fleas. You can develop a big ego. You can develop a sense of entitlement, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have a full-blown narcissistic operating system. But let's see what she says.
Just celebrated for, like, you're just so great. And you're saying, well, what should we tell kids if they're not great? Well, great means something, right?
Yes.
Great is excelling. So you love a child, you cultivate their strengths, but the idea being that narcissistic parents are very vulnerable to thinking their kids are great because they have to be, they're my kids, so they better be great kids. So these kids are being told they're all that over and over, and you're all that, you're special, you shouldn't have to struggle with the slings and arrows of the world. Well, then they get to adulthood and the slings and arrows happen and they are not having it. And that's where you see that on top of everything else can also be what fosters the building of the narcissistic child. Just overindulge. And what happens is they're overindulged for their outsides and you're so special, but their emotional world isn't nourished. So nobody is sitting with their emotions and letting them be sad. It's many times like, come on, let's all be happy. It's a lot of that, and that's a dangerous game to play with.
Would you say, with your research, if kids grew up in a healthy family, let's say they got all the tools and resources, and their parents were healed from their traumas and gave them, discipline, but love and all these things in the best way you could. Is it possible for someone to still be raised as a narcissist, even if they have this environment of love and safety? Or how does a narcissist become one? Is it only through family environment and the way they were treated? Or how does that actually happen?
A big question here by Lewis. Let's see. Drum roll. Let's the moment of truth here, Dr. Ramani. Let's see.
So the problem, if someone had all the fundamentals, right? The safety, the love, the consistency, the freedom from trauma,
great values,
the great values, all of those things, supportive educational environment, all of that. You still will have a handful, but you will have dropped the probability from here down to here.
Okay.
Right? It's a horse race, right?
All right. I kind of agree with that. I think she said it's still going to be a handful. But I guess what was the original question though? Like, if their temperament is this, let's say, I got to rewind this.
And they are not having it. And that's where you see that on top of everything else can also be what fosters the building of the narcissistic child. Just overindulge. And what happens is they're overindulged for their outsides and you're so special, but their emotional world isn't nourished. So nobody is sitting with their emotions and letting them be sad. It's many times like, come on, let's all be happy. It's a lot of that. And that's a dangerous game to play with.
Would you say, with your research, if kids grew up in a healthy family, let's say they got all the tools and resources and their parents were healed from their traumas and gave them, discipline, but love and all these things in the best way you could. Is it possible for someone to still be raised as a narcissist, even if they have this environment of love and safety? Or how does a narcissist become one? Is it only through family environment and the way they were treated? Or how does that actually happen?
So the problem, if someone had all the fundamentals, right? The safety, the love, the consistency, the freedom from trauma,
great values,
the great values, all of those things, supportive educational environment, all of that. You still will have a handful, but you will have dropped the probability from here down to here.
Okay.
Right? It's a horse race, right? You've really dropped the likelihood significantly. Narcissism creating adult narcissism is a complex interblend of that biological temperament meeting up all these environmental conditions. And there's a range of conditions.
I don't agree with part B. I don't think it has to meet those things for narcissism to develop. I think it doesn't help. Those other things don't help. But there's people that have had good childhoods, narcissists and borderlines both. If you talk to in my discussions with Dr. Simon, Dr. Salerno, Dr. Plomin, they all say this, and more people are saying it besides them. So this idea that the environment needs to trigger it or activate it, I just don't buy that. Now, there's plenty of people that disagree with that. And you might have seen me debate some of them in the comments, but there's certainly a fair amount of disagreement about that point too. To be fair.
That can result in adulthood narcissism. At the most extreme and probably most difficult is trauma in childhood. So a child who is raised and experiences trauma, significant caregiver loss, chaos, abuse, observing abuse, because that results in inconsistent caregivers, right? And so that can put a person at risk for developing an adulthood narcissistic personality. But here,
That's the myth. That childhood trauma puts you at risk. No, childhood trauma alone is not sufficient to create a personality disorder. Citing Dr. Robert Plomin, citing Dr. Peter Salerno, and others.
here's where it gets tricky. The majority of people exposed to trauma in childhood don't become narcissistic. You see what I'm saying? So we're talking about risk factors. You could.
Well, at least she admits that much. She knows that. And so what would she say is the difference? What's the difference then? It's got to be that biological component. What else would explain it?
But you don't always. So that's one pathway. This overindulgence, this like, you're so great, you're so special, you're so extraordinary, my kids are the most extraordinary thing. That's another model towards narcissistic personality development. Conditional love. Kobe Bryant's father. I'm only going to love you if you come back having scored 20 points. If you didn't, don't even show up.
Right.
And that's different, though. I think that's not necessarily a narcissistic operating system. She called it narcissistic personality development. And is that the same when I say narcissistic operating system? No, she might be talking about something different here. She might be talking about just someone who has some narcissistic behaviors. But I definitely think there's a big line in the sand between people that have a narcissistic operating system and then people that don't, and people who just have maybe some selfishness or toxic behaviors. There's a big difference between those things. That's why I think, and if you have any experience living with narcissists, being in romantic relationships with narcissists, having a narcissistic boss maybe that has a narcissistic operating system, you can sense that difference. It's in them. It's innate. It's not just being a little bit toxic. It is not the same. And so anyone can develop an ego. Anyone can have some entitlement. Anyone can have some toxic behaviors. And those things can be, I think they can happen via environment, but that is not the same as the narcissistic operating system. That's the distinction I make.
Now imagine that happening 1,000 times, 10,000 times. I love you when you clean the dishes. I love you if you get straight A's. I love you if you make the soccer goal. I love you if you whatever. The child learns that all love is conditional, which is that's transactional, basically. Right. All narcissistic relationships in adulthood are transactional. You set the tone there with conditionality. A lot of this, though, comes down to something called attachment. And attachment is something that's created in the first year or two of life. It requires an available, consistent, responsive caregiver. One, singular. You need that. That person who is there, who looks at the baby, who responds when it cries, who loves it, who holds it, who feeds it. You need that safe, it's called a secure attachment.
Dr. Salerno would say that narcissists do not attach. So they used to say that narcissists have a dismissive, avoidant attachment style. But he says, no, they don't attach. That's what he says. What do I think about it? You know, I'm not as well versed in attachment styles. It's, I think if you had to say what a narcissist attachment style is, it was more like control. Power and control is their attachment style, in my opinion.
A lot of the research really points to the importance of that secure attachment, that as being something that predicts a lower likelihood of adult narcissism.
So if you have a secure attachment, you're less likely. If you don't
but if you have an anxious attachment, and an anxiously attached baby is the child who absolutely flips out when their caregiver leaves. Like, if the mommy drops them off and they lose it, then the person who receives the child has a hard time soothing the child. And then when the child sees the parent again, they start crying again, almost like, how could you leave me?
You abandoned me for 5 hours.
Exactly. And that anxious attachment style is very much associated with the narcissistic style in adulthood. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you break down the differences between narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, and then also how you spot them?
So there's a big difference. If I was at a chalkboard here, I'd be drawing a Venn diagram with overlapping circles, okay? lots of overlap between narcissism and psychopathy. Lots, okay? The boldness, the meanness, the impulsivity, the disinhibition, the always working the angles, the exploitativeness, the manipulativeness, the entitlement, absolutely overlapping. So you might be wondering, then what's the difference? Here's the difference. Narcissistic people are insecure. And they are
Very insecure,
very
right?
insecure.
Gosh,
And lots of feelings of inadequacy.
Not always. Sometimes. Sometimes I think they do really feel grandiose and superior. And if you think that about yourself, you feel that about yourself. I think people just confuse their hypersensitivity to criticism and perceived criticism for this insecurity and inadequacy. Or they think they're only working so hard to overcompensate for those feelings of shame and insecurity. And again, I don't think always.
Okay. So, but that's all happening at an unconscious level. But I want you to think of a narcissist as somebody who constantly has a stomach ache, right? Because they're going through their lives, but they're like, there's almost this tension. They're not aware why they have it, but the tension that the top's going to get blown off and we're going to be able to see their inadequacies. That's why they're so sensitive to criticism.
Oh my God.
Like if I
They
were
can't
to
take
say,
feedback.
hey, like, yeah, it's interesting. You got some dust on your shirt, and you're like, oh, really? And you start coming at me. It's
Oh,
like
no,
such
you
a
got this on yours.
Yeah,
I mean, what are
right.
you
You
talking
got
about
that.
me?
Like,
Look
yeah.
at this and this and this, criticizing
yes,
you.
Yes. You see what I'm saying?
See, I don't think that's what it is. I think they just don't like it when they're not getting admired. They don't like it when they're not getting what they want in narcissistic supply. So it gives them a negative jolt. I don't think that negative jolt is because they're so insecure on the inside. Can there be some? I guess it's possible in the vulnerable types in particular. But again, that's more like borderline to me. And Dr. Salerno and I have talked about this. He says, no, like they are how they feel. Like they think they're grandiose and superior. And they feel that way too.
I think that's a hedge against the shame. That's the narcissist game. Psychopath doesn't go there. Psychopath is not anxious. Psychopath is not insecure.
They're calm.
Their nervous systems are different. So there's a part of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. This is the involuntary part of our nervous system, and it's from which the sympathetic nervous system comes off, which you know is fight or flight or freeze. And that fight, flight, freeze, and there's even a fourth part to it called fawn, which we could talk about. But that autonomic reaction, that like boom, adrenaline, got, you know, eyes wide open kind of reaction, that's not there for the psychopath. So whereas I don't know, if I saw something out there and I saw someone had $100 bill hanging out their wallet, never could I ever, like I would have a heart attack from the anxiety of thinking about like, no, you know, because I have a very probably overly functioning autonomic nervous system. But for somebody who's a psychopath, they'd clip that and their heart rate wouldn't
They would
even
not
go
think.
up.
They just
nothing.
take it, steal it. And
So they have no anxiety.
no
and they're-
excitement around it.
No excitement, no anxiety, and they're very stress resistant. And that way, that's why there's so many psychopathic CEOs. If you're going to be a CEO and nothing bothers you, you're able to say, cut those 100,000 jobs, and then you still go off and play golf for the afternoon because nothing gets you. They sometimes make great surgeons because when all hell's breaking loose, they're just sort of calmly doing their surgery thing. It really is, but there is a coldness and a callousness.
Interesting.
Because there is almost like no capacity for empathy, no capacity for intimacy.
Interesting.
And psychopaths are almost singularly motivated by power, pleasure, and profit, and mostly by power. They solely want to dominate because that's what they do. Narcissists like to dominate, but they actually kind of seem like dumb dogs next to the psychopaths.
Really?
Sometimes. I think it's a little reductionist perhaps, but possibly.
Yeah. The closest we get to overlap is what we call malignant narcissism. So that's when we have all the goodies we see in narcissism, but we see as more of a sadism and a paranoia in the malignant narcissist. They're the most dangerous narcissists. They're still not fully psychopaths because they still have the insecurity and the inadequacy. The psychopaths don't.
They're not
have
insecure.
that. They're not insecure. No, I mean, if you see a psychopath get mad, it's simply because you might have gotten in the way of something they needed to get done.
Right.
You know what they'll instead do? They'll very quietly figure out a way to destroy you.
Just get rid of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Or they'll calmly have someone say like, I'll literally look at you. If I was the psychopathic boss and you were working for me, I'd be like, and I'd become, and I go, and then I don't know whether that means you'd kill them or fire them or whatever, but no problem with that.
Right.
And very
they don't
easily,
have the emotion. They don't have empathy.
No empathy.
Does narcissists have empathy?
Narcissists have, we tend to say, oh, they don't have empathy. They have what we call, I like to call it instrumental empathy. They weaponize empathy. So narcissists get what empathy is. They know.
They use it against you.
They use it to get what they need. They don't necessarily use it against you, but like if they want to get you to do something, oh man, I heard your mom's sick.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh, how's she doing? Oh, I'm so sorry. Like it's rough. My mom was sick. She was really sick for a while too. I get all that. And then before, it's a rapport, and then they're getting something from you, right?
Gosh.
This is what I would consider cognitive empathy, if anything, but it's really just looking for ways to manipulate because they're good at that.
So it feels like empathy, and especially when you first meet them, that's why so many people think narcissistic people are charming and charismatic. They know they know what's right. They know, or I should say, they know what empathy is. They know how to read the room. So they got it, but they can't be bothered with it. They actually cognitively get it. They can think about empathy. I need something from him. Somebody said his mom's sick. So let me work the mom angle here because that's going to help him feel better. What they don't have is any regard so they have no regard for the feelings of others. They don't care. So when they're done with you and they've gotten what they need from you, and someone's the next week when they're fully done with you and say, hey, his mom got sick, and be like, so what do you want me to do about it? So it's very cold when they're done. And that's why people say, well, don't tell me they don't have empathy.
And that's a good point by Dr. Ramani. That's exactly how it'll go. When they want something from you, extremely important. But the second that they have what they want, and then something's important to you, completely different story. Everything's on their terms.
Because it seemed like they cried at that movie, or they were really understanding my feelings. Odds are they needed something at that point.
Why do people, I'm as guilty as anyone in the past for this. Why?
And so that's the end of it. I don't know why they did it that way. With her breakdown there. Silliness. Narcs are social psychopaths, both sociopaths. Why does Ramani overcomplicate? That's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know why she does. I think maybe she gets bored of talking about the same things all the time, so she tries to add some flavor to it for the entertainment value or the views, or those kinds of things. All right, everybody. Tuesday, we have an interview that I'll be coming up with. Interesting topics I'll be talking about in that interview, but it should be pretty cool. Something about trauma, some capitalist business stuff as well. A little off the beaten path, so we'll see how it goes. Oh, George, what are we going to do with you? All right, everybody. I'm tired now. So thanks for all the super chats, everybody. That is all greatly appreciated. Like the video if you liked it, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel here if you're not already. And we got some very interesting interviews coming up. I'm going to ask Marcella from Beyond the Bruise again, Dr. Salerno and Christian John in a couple weeks. That should be pretty interesting. That actually might be even more entertaining than Dr. Salerno and Dr. Eatonson. Maybe. We'll see. I will pray for you, Deanna. That's a rough situation. DV and being a mom. But the chat has your back here. There's a lot of support here. There's a good flock of black sheep here too, everybody. I love how everyone supports each other in the chat. It's a very healthy chat, not a toxic chat here. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think you'll like it. Why? I think you'll like it. Well, Christian John has a differing point of view than you. He's more environmental. But we'll see. I mean, Dr. Salerno's not going to try to get him in like gotcha moments. He just wants to have a collaborative discussion. And so I'd say, yeah, perfect. Should be interesting. But yeah, Ellie, George, why, Arwen, no Jolly tonight. Where is Jolly? You got it, Deanna. I'll be back again soon. Come back for more lives. I'm live all the time. You got it, Rhodes. There'll be some good ones. There's a lot of good information in this one, too. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Over and out, everybody. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Arwen.